Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a legendary track steeped in history, especially with the cars we see on track today. Get ready for 200 laps around this circuit for one of the last times on a broadcast on iRacing. My name is Old Memphis, and I am thrilled to be joined in the booth by Trevor McClure and Eddie Smith, working the controls as our producer. Camera angles tonight are, as always, provided by Dougie Beard. We're happy that you joined us tonight this evening here on Maconi Entertainment. Tonight's event is a 200-lap race with the SimRacers4MentalHealth group, with 33 drivers getting set to take it to the grid. Trevor, tonight's race will be a tough one for these drivers. It is long enough to wear you down, but short enough still to never quite give you time to take a breath. Why don't you talk us some more about this incredible venue?
Well, this, as you said, is steeped in history. It opened in 1909, paved with bricks, hence the name, the Brickyard. It's 2.5 miles of oval on a ton of acreage, big enough to put golf courses, concert venues, and a hell of a lot more on the inside. These Dallara IW12 chassis will reach speeds over 230 miles an hour in qualifying trim and the high 220s for average speed in the race. 9.2 degrees of banking on the corners with flat straightaways means these guys have really got to work hard, especially with the weight jacker feature on the Dallara DW12s. But as you said, yeah, it's very long. It's long enough to wear you down, and it's fast enough to keep you on your toes 100% of the lap.
And you mentioned, of course, this track originally paved in bricks, and in fact, some of the bricks are still what marks the start-finish straight to this very day, and that is what has become a staple to this racetrack, of course, for one of the biggest Triple Crown events and one of the most watching motorsport events in the entire world that takes place over in May. And then, of course, you've got what used to be the Brickyard 400 with the NASCAR Cup Series race on the oval around here. Now, of course, they run down into that infield circuit where we still see the series still run a little bit later on in that month of May as well. But for now, qualifying is underway from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Brickyard, as you got, well, it was set to be 33 drivers. Looks like we got down about 31, though, but still 31 cars, nothing to shrug off, especially when you're going to be racing wheel to wheel in these open wheel cars. And like you said, over 220 miles an hour once we get down into things and once this race gets itself kicked off in a high gear.
That's right, and we've got some usual suspects from practice up front. David Graybill, Pavel Beer, Jordan Groves are top three at the moment. Still a couple of minutes here. Anything can happen, as we still have a few drivers maybe playing that month of May game and waiting to qualify later. So we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, it should be a very exciting race, almost a full grid here. Of course, the normal race in real life limited to 33, so we might just be shy of that, and that's something that's actually happened in recent years as well. So nothing out of the ordinary here.
Nothing out of the ordinary indeed, as you take a look there at one of these drivers, Tyler Coogan, currently making his way around the racetrack. He currently sits 18th place on the qualifying sheets with a 39.911. The driver furthest back at the 39-second bracket, for there's Jerry Isaacs back at the 19th position with a 40-second time. See if he can improve. Time to be for provisional pole. 39.574 is set by David Graybill. He's going to be good enough for 13th, though, tucked in behind Greg Dale, and going to be beside Aaron Brown come the green flag in just about 50 seconds here.
That's right, and you look back here, first to 24th are only separated by a second, which in road racing, which is more my forte and my profession, isn't all that much, but at Indy, in qualifying, over 230 miles an hour, it's a lifetime. So we've got a really tight field here in the top 10, all within 0.1 seconds of each other. So really exciting. We're going to see the packs here, the fast group, the middle group, and the tail group, as we normally do in the real race as well. So there will be action all around from top to bottom here tonight.
10 seconds left on the clock. Robert Smith's on a last flying lap, though he's already completed all of his runs. He's just getting in some of that extra practice as he runs around through turn number 3. But clock will expire here on qualifying. Let's take a rundown here of your Maconi Entertainment starting grid as we get set to go racing for this 200-lap event put on by SimRacers4MentalHealth. It's going to be David Graybill on pole position with the likes of Pavel Beer, down to that second position. Jordan Groves is back in third with Craig Forsyth in fourth. Michael Chin is going to be in 5th place with Jet Kokoski rounding out row number 3. Row number 4 holds Noah Janinda with Jeremiah Forbes in 8th. Cody Richardson, Kamal Murad will round out the top 10 with Jason Wallet sitting back there in 11th, Tyler.
And we've got Greg Dale, Tyler Coogan, Aaron Brown. They're on the 10th row, I should say. Andrew Kotska, Adam Thompson, the 10th. Scott Richard, Robert Gregory in 18th. Move back to Jerry Isaacs, Patrick Stein, Landon Benson, and Devin Adams in the number 11 in 22nd position.
23rd place, we're now getting to times that are second off of the pole sitters' time. You've got the likes here of Robert Smith back in 23rd with Wilhelm Layton bringing it up in the 24th position in the number 9 car. Tyler Beeman is going to be down in 25th place with Nathaniel Davison 26th. John O'Brien's is the last driver to put himself on the qualifying boards with the 41.310, 1.7 seconds off of the pole sitters' time. A lot of ground to make up for John O'Brien to this one. And then you got the guys that did not set qualifying laps, including Aaron McGuire, William Kruska, John McAdory, along then with the last driver on the grid, Theo Burgrave at the moment, starting way back in a lonely 31st position on the grid. But hey, only 4 drivers not setting times. That's not bad at all. Usually the numbers are a lot higher than that for faster tracks like this, where draft can play such a big impact. But this ain't no Daytona, it ain't no Talladega. Indianapolis is one of those tracks where, while yes, it's going to be a draft race for sure, you're not going to be getting the bumper-to-bumper pack racing that you can often see in the NASCAR series when they go to tracks of this length.
Yeah, especially with the open wheels, you don't really want to do much wheel banging and side-to-side contact with one another, as you can pretty well end your race that way. But as you said, it is definitely going to be a drafting race at these speeds. There's no way it can't be. But one of the unique features with Indianapolis is the oval portion, which is what we're running exclusively today, is diamond cut. So the tires are specially designed for this place. It's very abrasive in order to elevate the grip. So a big key to these races is also tire management. It's very easy to blow the fronts off of your tires and drop your pace like a rock. So all these guys are going to have to really mind their P's and Q's in the draft and keep themselves clean with one another. They're also going to have to manage that tire wear as well.
It's actually interesting that you mentioned diamond grind had obviously been used to repave this racetrack way back when, because that actually reminded me of the 2005 Formula One debacle. I was just watching a video about that one earlier today, where they had that big tire issue with Michelin and Firestone, and obviously that basically killed off Formula racing in North America, or at least in the United States of America, as we knew it, up until the Circuit of the Americas rolled around over in 2012. But obviously the Indy cars never had such struggles here, and we're going to be seeing that as well. Here, this one, the Dallara IR-18 is going to get set to take it around the racetrack. David Graybill, the pole sitter at the moment, playing a bit of bumper tag there with the pace car. 200 laps, fixed setups, no fast repairs. That's going to be very, very crucial with these guys here tonight. One mistake finds you in the wall. That's automatically 10 minutes of damages, and that's going to see you down and out of the race tonight. Could be even more if you get that motor blown up, then you're looking at 30 minutes plus. For now, though, we're thankful that you joined us tonight here on Maconi Entertainment, and the pace car going to make its way down and into pit road, leaving the hands of David Graybill, who's going to take us down to the iRacing green flag. We're underway for the SimRacers Mental Health Group race here at Indianapolis.
Really good launch there, and it looks like our P3 is going to be P2 by turn 1. He wasn't asleep at the wheel there, really on it. As we see these guys here, of course, our start was unconventional for this event and venue, as we typically start 3 wide in rows of 3. Here we go. As we go into turn 3 here, we're pretty well single file at the nose of the field. A couple of double wides there coming out of Speedway 2 time there, but right now we are developing a pack of 4 to 5 cars here.
Trouble and caution in the background. One car got up and into the fence, and Greg Dale has found himself hard into the wall. That's the car that I think brought out the yellow flag, but the car that got into the catch fence was actually John O'Brien, who launched up and over the top. I believe Nathaniel Davis to find himself getting into the turn 3 catch fence. So first caution on just the opening lap of this race did not take very long for trouble to strike these guys at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's take a rundown and see what the heck happened to Greg Dale. We'll start things with that one first. He just got a bit caught and got up and into the barrier over in the right-hand side, and It was a bit further back where we saw more drivers being collected and slammed up and into the fence. And the number 20 car was the one that I think got overall the worst of that deal. But Greg Dale, obviously the first driver to be fully knocked out among others. And the car at the back of, I believe that would have been Jason Wallet in the number 76 car. And you can see O'Brien making his way down to pit road after he got some fairly hefty damage for himself as well. So a yellow flag on just the second lap of this race, and noticing one other name dropping down the timing orders here that I was expecting to see. William Layton had damage they just had to get fixed in the pit road, which is surprising me because Layton had avoided that whole mess, I thought. Not sure if you have any information on that one, Tyler.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I saw him. Wilhelm Layton had some issues in practice. He was really struggling a lot, so not sure what would have put him in pit lane. But we've had 4 drivers now in pit lane affecting repairs. Wilhelm Layton obviously back here now at the tail end of the field, but yeah, maybe it's a strategy call. Maybe he's doing something a little offbeat, which is. Sometimes that fortune pays off for a lot of guys here in Indianapolis.
Well, I'm not quite sure being sideswiped by Robert Gregoire while entering pit road would be quite a strategy call that he would have wanted to make, but it's something that did happen, and it's why William Layton is so far down the order. Lost the front wing when he actually made contact with the wall, so he's had to get his car fixed, and he's now back out, as you mentioned before, onto the racetrack. But lights are still on aboard the iRacing safety car as we get set to, I imagine, go racing next time by. It should be a fairly interesting run to see how this is going to pan on out. Joe McAdory on his way now out of pit road. He'll pick up the 25th position. So still have 25 cars on the racetrack, but we've already lost 5, it looks like. Jason Wallet, Greg Dale, Nathaniel Davis, Robert McGuire, and John O'Brien entering pit road. We're going to look back to, or we tried to look back on one of the Maconi Entertainment replays just to try to see if we couldn't find out anything that ended up happening, but not able to get that footage for you guys. But hey, we got the eyes on the back of our heads. That's why we tend to kind of just say what we see, so to speak. So it'll be David Graybill then leading the way, and should be at record lights out this time by, and then we should be able to get ourselves sorted, as I believe Joe McAdory just catch up to the tail end of the field through Speedway 4 now, as we'll get set to cross it over. And I imagine single file restarts for us here tonight. And it's looking like that will be the case in typical Dallara IR-18 fashion.
As you said, we are single file restarts here. I think we could have gone green with that one. There wasn't much to clean up there virtually there at turn 3 and 4. Hopefully we get back to racing soon. As you said, it didn't take very long for that first lap incident, so only had 25% of our race so far green. Hopefully that isn't the tone for the rest of the evening. But, yeah, interesting to see the top 4, Graybill, Beer, Groves, and Forsyth really launching off and starting to walk away from the pack, even in that short time that we were green. So eyes will be on them, and we'll see what we get in the in terms of action from the middle of the pack. And you know, some of these guys who are hanging on to the back, maybe Joe McAdory's that have had some issues early that are still on the lead lap. This race has been won from far back in the early stages, so hope is not lost for the drivers here at the back.
Around through Speedway, turn numbers 3 and 4 down through the chute, and we'll be going down into turn 4 this next time by, and should be able to get things underway with a minimal time loss here in this one. We mentioned before, it only takes one mistake to find yourself crashed out of the race, and 5 drivers finding that out the hard way. Our space car down into the pit road. Field started to bunch up. One driver already poking the nose out. That's Michael Chin trying to see if he can't get the drop on the race leader here. Green flag back in the air. Graybill leads the way. He's got a solid jump, about 4 car lengths back to Pavel Bier. Now that's fine for now. This is going to mean he's going to be in trouble when we get down and around over to that back straightaway. One car dropping pace in the field. Michael Chin off the pace, and he is dropping like a stone all the way down the straightaway. Something's going awry for the 34 car, and he's spun it now up the track in turn 2. Gonna hang on, and nobody else collected in caution flag number 2 on the day.
And that was very, very strange there. He was way inside around 1 and way inside entering 2 and dropped himself below the apron. And just like in NASCAR races, there is no grip below the apron line, just marbles. So really not a big surprise that he spun out there, lost control. But very questionable why he was out of line here as we're watching the replay on the inside so early, and then he finds himself just kind of in no man's land, lacking pace here on the straight. Then he just gets himself shallow through turn 1 as you see the cars just going by. It's possible he has a problem, because even at this point he should be somewhat on pace, but as we see here, he just drops down below the apron line, transitions off that 9.2 degree banking onto the flat, and it's just lights out there for Michael Chin.
That's not something we've talked about a whole lot, but that white line, in particular the curb or the inside line, it will bite you in a big, big way. The Cup cars can, they're easily able to take that line, and they're able to just stick it right down on there. We've seen it time and time again, but with these Dallara IR-18s, and even back with the DW12s to the RO5s, it's still a massive problem, right? You cannot even look at those sections of the curb the wrong way on the racetrack, or you're going to find yourself spinning around exactly like Michael Chin did. I do have a theory as to why Chim was so slow on the restart. When we were looking to come to green, he did have a technical issue and was, shall we say, not in this realm of existence from about turn 2 all the way down the back straightaway until about turn 3. So I wonder if maybe he realized possible connection issues arising for him, so he opted to go slow on the bottom in order to let everybody through up on the top side, in order so he could filter to the back of the pack, and it just went wrong for him when he got down too low over at, obviously he was trying to take the access road in turn 2 for the pit exit lane. He's going to be down the pit road along with Aaron Macori and Joe McAdory as they're all down to the lane.
That's absolutely right, and there's a vast difference in chassis compliance between a tube frame NASCAR and a carbon tubbed Dallara IW18, as you said, and they just do not like to be flexed with one on a flat and the other on a banking. The same can be said for sports car prototypes like I deal with in real life. They just do not like those transitions, and that's something we have to be mindful of when we race at places like Daytona. So again, it's not surprising that the car's attitude changed quite dramatically once he dropped under that line and the banking started to develop again from the flat. But just really a shame if that was a connection issue. You hate to see it, and that's one of those things similar to failures outside of your control in real life. You're just kind of a passenger there and take anybody else with him on that trip. But interesting to see a couple of other pit lane takers there from the back, including Joe McAdory, who was initially, he's now already on a 2-stopper 7 laps into the race, but he still finds himself on the lead lap. So and he might be calling a strategy audible here, get some new tires, maybe fill up on fuel and extend his stint here.
I think that kind of says a thing or two, right? I mean, we're 10 minutes deep into a race around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That means we should be around lap 20 or so. We haven't even hit lap 10 yet. We're already 2 cautions deep. So there is, I think it's safe to say, some work to be done on the racetrack, and hopefully we'll be getting ourselves with some more green flag runs later on in this race. More drivers coming down to pit road, including Macquarie, McAdory, Wallet, and again, Michael Chin. So I have a feeling that these guys are just coming on down to get these cars topped up on fuel, might be going for some sort of fuel strategy, or maybe they have damage from that opening caution, right? And they're just trying to get some of that damage repaired. May as well, while you got this free caution to help you work with it. Is worth noting that Jason Wallet is the only driver that or at least was in pit road now, on track though, and he's the first one that's laps down that's still in this race. He is 4 laps down after he was involved in that opening caution. That leaves 25 total drivers on the lead lap, 22 at the moment on the racetrack, with 2 currently on the way out of pit road. Expect Chin and Wallet to be out before too long back on the racetrack as well, and hopefully able to rejoin the tail end of this field. But we're approaching 3 and 4, and we'll be back green flag racing for lap number 9, and hopefully we'll be able to get ourselves a long green flag run in this time.
We certainly need it. We haven't really been able to see how this race is going to develop or be able to predict who's going to break away. I mean, obviously the top 4 are easy to predict, but as we go through turn 3 here, as we come back to the green be turn 4. Really need that long green run to understand who is going to play out, who is going to be where. As we see the pace car late ducking in, Barney ready with the flag. Nice and tidy single file here. We are green once again. Great jump from Graybill. He is the starter master. Had such good starts for the race starts and all the restarts. He's made sure that he's had a sizable gap behind him, which of course is something that you need as you're leading this pack and you're punching the biggest hole in the air. As we already see Beer fit a couple of car links, and we have disaster
trouble
in turn 2.
Huge crash. One car up and over and still being hit. It's Janinda, I think. And the number 30 car still rolling, and you still have cars piling in at the tail end. That was Landon Benson that got into Jeremiah Forbes in a huge way. So a massive collision off of Speedway 2 and our first full flip on the day. We had a car get up into the fence earlier, but it never went fully over. But the 30 car cannot say the same for him, as that was the fight for 5th that caused this major mayhem. And we'll back this one up. We'll show you what happened down to the back straightaway. Watch that black car on the outside. Gets into the wall and up into the air. Cartwheeling over and over. And there you see Forbes sliding up from the bottom of the racetrack after he connected with the inside wall. Janinda's going to flip over and come to rest on all 4 wheels against the inside safer barrier in the infield grass. Huge wreck, though. And again, we have not made it a lap to green on board with the number 30 car. Hang on, this is going to be a wild one.
Yeah, it's far too early into the race to be trying to go too wide through turn 2, even if other car, I'm not sure who it was, that was inside of Janinda made a mistake and wasn't there early enough. It's too much risk to be putting yourself in that position. And unfortunately, it looked like a few other cars had got collected there too. So we're going to have a bunch of takers here for either a rage quit or some service on pit road.
So yellow flag out for the 3rd time. We are down to 23 cars, excuse me, still on the lead lap. Michael Chin is doing his best to try to get out of pit road safely. And holy cow, that was, I'm a bit of a loss for words. I mean, you expect to see some big wrecks at IMS, but none quite to that extent. Macquarie, Benson, McAdory, all in the pit road. Also in the lane currently, Janinda, Forbes, Richardson. Michael Chin officially goes down a lap. He will not be able to stay on the lead lap after this one, so the cause of caution flag number 2 is going to be put down 1. All the while, the field going to filter by on the right-hand side, down to the bottom of the racetrack. It's not been the best of starts so far for this 500-mile race put on by SimRacers for Mental Health. Hasn't so far today. It has been, I think, attrition-filled. It's almost a bit too generous at this point.
Yeah, that's very generous. And speaking of the day that keeps on getting worse, we've got Michael Chin, who was stopped, now rolling really slow now on the back straight. So his day has gone from bad to possibly salvaged to bad again. He's at a crawl as we ride along with him.
I think he's waiting for somebody to catch him here because he doesn't have damage on him. He does have an end of the longest line penalty, it looks like, so I think he's trying to wait for one driver in the back. Might be Jason Wallet, who's flying up on him now, coming into 3.
I'm not sure. It's very...
It was. As soon as Wallet passed him, he started to speed up again.
Interesting. Let's, at any rate, we'll put him now a lap down, and we are down to now 21 cars on the lead lap. As we have Joe McAdory, victim in our first incident from lap 1, back again on pit lane, though still maintaining position on the lead lap. Very short stop, though. It looks like he is just taking some fuel and topping up. And given the climate of this race, you know, he's going to have the best load on board of all the cars in the lead lap. So this could play dividends for him later in the race. It's really interesting and very strange dynamic to the race so far in these first 12 laps. We've yet to cross the stripe under green, I believe.
You are correct. We have not completed a full green flag lap. First caution was on the opening lap, turn 3. Second caution came between 1 and 2. And this one was off of turn 2 down to the back straightaway. Still waiting for lucky number 4. Maybe fourth time's the charm. That's how the saying goes, isn't it? Fourth time's the charm? It's not. It's never been 3, right?
Oh, it's fourth time's the charm when the third time isn't the charm. It's, it's one of those things. You know, I do race strategy and IMSA professionally. That's what I do for a living, if you can call it that. And we see a lot of these caution-filled races where you just seem like you can't get a green flag lap in to get anything going your way. Then eventually, like I always say, like all the people that are going to crash have now crashed, and now we can get on with it. So hopefully we're getting to that point where get to the cream of the crop and we can just get on with it, and we have these long green flag runs, because that's really going to test the mettle of these guys, not just in the car, but mentally in terms of strategy as well. Because right now we don't know who is going to handle this locked and standardized setup the best. And again, tire wear here at this place is very critical. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out if we can get a long green run. And I think that's short time coming, because we're running out of cars to crash as it turns out.
Well, I mean, the tire wear hasn't really been a problem for these guys as of yet, because we haven't been long enough to even get these tires up to temp, let alone actually wear them down at all while we're racing out here. Again, hopefully we'll be good to go this time by. Lights are out aboard the iRacing pace car. So we'll be trying to see how this is going to go. Race control, I think trying to tell these guys to get themselves settled down here, just kind of trying to listen into some of the drivers' chat while we're under this yellow flag period here. And you know it's not good when you're on lap 13, you're at 3 cautions, and you've already eliminated enough cars that you're down to 23 out of 31 on the racetrack. By the way, out of those, William Kruska never actually took the green flag. He is still yet to be put on the actual scoring pylon. Pace cars down and in. Take number 4, and hopefully this time will be our lucky number. David Greenbill takes us to the green flag. Paul Beer right behind, trying to run him down the 22 car, with Jordan Groves picking up the pace in 3rd. They got a good breakaway back to the 4th position driver, Craig Forsyth, and nope, not going to do it this time. Jeff Kukowski going around in the 8 car, and it will be single car spin down to the bottom. Make that. Nope, we've had a second incident. Aaron Brown also collided. He ran over Tyler Coogan, who was checking up for the spin, and I believe possibly a 3rd car, maybe Adam Thompson, collected as well. So caution number 4, still not there.
We'll take a look here. It looked to me quickly that there was a 3-car secondary collision after the single car spin here.
Yeah, right there.
1, 2, and 3, it looks like.
Yeah, so you see the orange and blue car on the bottom. That was the instigator of all of this. He spun first. And then, of course, you had the likes of Aaron Brown ran over Tyler Coogan, who was checking up to avoid the smoke. I mean, there's just nothing that Aaron Brown can really do there. You can't react that quickly when a car checks up at these speeds in front of you. And of course, you've got Adam Thompson way up there as well, who kind of got collided. But it looks like he just more got a ricochet. So he might be fine based on his machine. He more just kind of glanced off of the cars in front of him. We'll take a look again from above here. Right about there. Kind of nailed one of those cars was spinning around, but not a lot of damage that I'm seeing on that car. So I think Thompson might have been able to actually get away with that one.
Time will tell if we can actually get some laps in to see if he's got an aero deficit because of that damage. But like you said, it looks like the main parts are intact and on the car. So really dodging a bullet there from Aaron Thompson, because that's not a light or easy hit. In real life, you'd likely have that front right corner completely torn off, or at least dislodged. So pray for netcodes for Adam Thompson there. I think he might have gotten away with one. And, yeah, it's one of those days. It seems like we're down to now 19, possibly 18 cars in the lead lap. we're just behind the safety car. And it's going back and looking at that incident. I know it's hindsight being 2020, but generally on oval races, when a car in front of you spins to the left, they're going to continue sailing into the infield. They're not going to hook back uphill against the wall. So, really questionable checkup there from the car that was involved there with Adam Thompson and Brown, I believe. But generally with these ovals, you've got to be paying attention to the car that's in front of you. They were close enough to see it, so I think that one was somewhat avoidable, and we could have had that a single car incident there had proper wits been about them.
Still lots to go, not even a 10th of the way into this race, and already we are 4 cautions in as we continue to work our way around. Running order for the top 5 is looking to be Graybill, Bier, Groves, Forsyth, and Murad to bring up the top 5. So far, I think we are down to 16 out of 31 cars on the lead lap. With counting them up here, I'm looking at about 12 eliminated now from this race after only 16 laps of competition. Lights out, and we go green this time by.
Real interesting again. We have Joe McAdory, who now finds himself in 16th place, once again on pit road. He's up to 6 or 7 stops now, so he's for me been the most entertaining. Yes. Let's double check here, but he has yes, he is working stop number 8.
Whew.
Made a pit stop every 2 laps so far this race.
That's impressive.
He finds himself still in the lead lap. So really interesting calls from himself. Aaron McCory, of course, was either tangled or just missed that whole schmozzle that caused this yellow. He finds himself in 15th there, just ahead of McAdory, leaving pit lane and catching the field, which now appears to be in turn 3.
David Graybill about to get himself running. Theo Burgrave, amazed at the fact that he's been able to gain 20 positions where he started today. I will say, I think some of those positions have been kind of handed on the silver platter, but hey, a spot gained is a spot gained after all, and I'm sure he will not be complaining at all with the fact that he is currently running all the way up there at about that 11th position after starting way back down the order. The driver's gained the most, though, actually is Burgrave after he started way back in the 31st position. Pace car is in, and we're back to green flag racing here this time by. And again, Graybill off and away on a good tear, and he's trying to see if he can continue to hang on for the race lead while the field strings it out further in the background. 6 cars total breaking away. It's a hightail down the back straightaway. Bier catching up. He's going to look to the left, make the overtake on David Graybill, who's going to run him down into turn number 3, and Graybill trying to see if he can't maybe get that run back for the 2nd position. Could it be our first lead change of the race if that 29 car doesn't want to hightail back down to him? And finally, after 18 tries, we made it the lap to green.
Hooray! It looks like we've also had our first lead change as well. Again, this is not... That's right. We're making progress here. This is not uncommon because, again, you're moving so fast, pushing so much air. Usually the best place to be, especially on the last lap, is not first place but second. So see how well these two guys work together. But I suspect, given their pace, if they mind their P's and Q's and play nice with each other, they should be able to drive away from the field and really make it a 2-horse race here. As we see Graybill, even though he's in second, he's got a 15-car gap back to 3rd place, and Groves, and that's only opening up because he is just taking the draft from Pavel Bier here as he takes the position away from him as well. We'll see Bier here back into the draft, and these guys should be working together. Hopefully the noises I'm hearing are not issues, but they are. We are yellow again.
We were doing so well.
So well.
Kamal Murad crashed out of the 5th position. So the number 19 car, the cause of our 5th yellow flag of the race, and looks to be a single car spin, possibly another car collected. So we'll get a look at this one here. This is, oh, right there, yeah. Hard to the inside wall, and I believe that's the north chute. Correct me if I'm wrong. Rex out of turn 1. Oh, that's a textbook mistake right there. Hits the outside wall, spins out of the inside, and oh, just got nicked by Tyler Beeman there in the number 10 car, who ran over the nose cone. That's what ripped the whole nose assembly off of the number 19 car. That's, again, that's textbook, though. You have a little bobble from the bottom end of the corner, right? We saw this way back at almost every single Indy 500 that comes here every single year. You wash up the track into the outside wall, and from there, there's only one place to go. It's back down to the bottom.
That's right. He just looked either too much understeer or too late of a turn in, but he definitely missed the apex there at 1, nowhere close to the line where he should have been. And of course, if you don't make the apex, you're going to end up high. And he only just tagged the bulge of the safer barrier there on exit of 1, and that was enough to send him flying there. But yeah, you're right. That's a textbook crash. We've seen Hinchcliffe, Day, even Mario Andretti the last time he tried to qualify for a 500. That was the incident that made him say maybe not this year. But it's something that befalls just about everybody that crashes at Indianapolis.
Even in the Indy Lights series, we see this. I remember way back in 2000, I think it was 2011, there was a major Indy Lights crash that happened over in that same section of the racetrack. Somebody spun out from the bottom, hit the outside wall. Somebody else hit the outside wall going evasive, slammed down right against the concrete barrier, and actually overturned and ripped the car in half. So it's something that happens in every race car that comes here, not exclusive to the Dallara IR-18s. You can see right there, that little bit of a wheel twitch. I think he kind of bobbled slightly on the entry, turned it too aggressively, and that's what caused the push up the racetrack into the outside wall. And from there, slammed down head first into the inside wall. Watch it spins up the track. Right about right there, you see the car jerk, and the whole nose assembly just comes ripped apart because of that slight little clip.
You're right, and it doesn't take much contact at 200 miles an hour plus to do any damage to these things, especially directions that these pieces aren't intended to take force. So really not surprised that blew up. What I am surprised of is we had Craig Forsyth, our P5, up into the pit lane, and it looks like he took tires and fuel here. So I'll have to keep an eye on that. That was our inside second row, if we're doing it in typical Indy fashion. So P4, starting grid position. He was running 5th there at the beginning of this caution period. And he is now on fresh rubber and tires. So really interesting strategy call from him. Go ahead and take himself out of the contention effectively, but put himself on the best equipment and the best position here. So I think he's going to be in a really nice spot if we do find ourselves with a long green run after this. Because as most of the cars here, especially the ones in the lead lap, yet to stop. And while we have been running behind the safety car for the majority of this race so far, we're not burning as much fuel as we would at full green, but we are still burning fuel. And constant heating and cooling of the tires, heating and cooling, is not doing them any favors, especially on a hot May day as we have here, with the track temperature at 53 degrees centigrade, which is about 120 Fahrenheit, if my math is correct in my head. So it's brutal on these tires to put them through such thermal shock of cooling and heating and cooling and heating. So he's really in the best position here to take his car further into the race than anybody else, and that's going to give him more options in the strategy book than anybody else. So I think he's paying the price now for dividends to be paid in the future.
So I think this is going to be an interesting restart here, more so than the other ones. Maybe not so much because we might get a green flag running, but because of who's leading this race, right? I mean, for every restart we've seen so far, Davey Graybill has been the one to take us to the green. And we always see him try to take a slightly earlier launch to try to get a good toe to try to break away from the cars behind. Now, though, we get to see what it's going to be like when Graybill is in that second position trying to close up to the guys in front, where now Pavel Beer is going to be running the race in the lead, and we'll see what Beer can do being the jump car now, so to speak, as he's going to lead this field through turn numbers 3 and 4 in his Verizon Dallara IR-18, as the 22 car going to be set to take us to the racetrack. Pace car once again pulls down, and then on the other side of the pit attenuator, and we'll leave it in the hands of that 22 car. Take us back to the green flag, and it's again an early jump, and one that Graybill could not anticipate. He's fallen back by about 4 car lengths, but he might just be able to get that run down the back straightaway and overtake him by the time they get down for turn number 3. All's looking quiet so far towards the back of the pack. It's been a good run so far through 1 and 2. We'll hold our breath as we run our way down the back straightaway.
Graybill's in some unfamiliar territory here, but he's looking to get himself back into familiar territory as he goes down the inside of Beer there at 3. Seems to have that locked up quite nicely. Jordan Groves trying to hang on. He hasn't been able to keep with this pair previous 5 restarts for very long, but I think this is the longest he's tucked onto the bumper here, so keep some eyes on him. Maybe he's learned a thing or two in his restart experience as we have another exchange for the lead. Looks like Beer and Graybill are just going to keep trading here and hopefully work with each other on the draft, as I said earlier, and pull it away and to the end of the race with a decent gap, and then may the best man win. But we have Jordan Groves here, now about 7 car lengths back, trying to hang on as we have another exchange for the lead here.
And this is something very commonly seen in racing with the Dallara IR-18s at the IMS Speedway, right? This kind of slingshot drafting was first popularized with the Dallara DW12, but even more so with the IR-18. And it actually is a benefit to these guys who traded the lead constantly, because by doing this, they're able to slingshot around each other and actually pull away from the cars behind. They've actually built over a 3/4 of a second lead, make that now 0.8 of a second.
We have another car in the wall
behind. Oh, and we have another one down to the bottom. It's Robert Smith. Looks like he'll be able to hang on to it, though, and we should be able to keep this thing green.
Hopefully. He had a little pancake there. Not terribly dissimilar to Walmrad's crash that caused the yellow last time, but he was more of a flat pancake on that safer barrier. And
good save.
Safer barriers, yeah, very good save. But the safer barriers are designed to absorb that energy, but not to grab the car and hook it like a tire wall, which is why we don't use tire barriers, anything similar at oval tracks. Hopefully not too much damage on his car, because he was running 4th place prior to that incident as he comes to pit road.
In fact, the safer barriers are even seeing more and more use on the road course, most notably the Porsche curves over at the circuit des 24 Hours du Mans over in France, where the 24 Hours of Le Mans is held. You'll see no tire barriers there, but they do have a safer barrier in place of a runoff there, because, again, it is, as you mentioned, safer than having a tire barrier that can hook you around the racetrack. Take a look at this one. This is Robert Smith, and the replay of what happened to the number 18 car. Now sits 14th on the racetrack, and this was, well, he was inside the top 5. Pushes up too wide, pancakes wall, and look at this. How about that for some wheel work down to the bottom, and thought he was going to lose it here when he kind of clipped the grass a little bit, but was able to get that thing under control and nurse its way around to pit road. So close shave there for Robert Smith. I said take the corners. He opted to go down into the pit entry roads down in 3 and 4 as well. Not required, but it's a good case if you're in trouble like that one. So he made a wise move there, get down and out of the way, and now effectively going to be out of the race. Well, you still got your 2 drivers scrapping for the race lead, but now again, gap's still starting to build up between Pierre and Graybill. Up to about 4/10, maybe 3.5 of a second here or so, as 22 car going to pull clear. You're right on board with Jordan Groves hanging on behind, and the 66 car for 3rd. They're all in a huge breakaway in 4th place, using some no man's land, and look, right about that 5th or 6th position, that's where we got all the action on track at the moment, is in that battle for the spots right around the top 10.
That's right. We have Craig Forsyth, who I spoke about earlier, who was on the freshest tires and freshest fuel of anybody. He's found himself now 7 seconds back off the lead in P5. We've got Wilhelm Leighton now leading this pack of 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, it looks like, with Theo Musgrave really hanging on, but hounded now by Andrew Koska, Tyler Beeman, soon to be joined by Jerry Isaacs and Patrick Stein. So really nice pack here, but as we know, packs tend to cause cautions, especially when they're racing this close together. Another little brush with the wall by Theo Burgrave. really struggling here to hang on. He was as high as 5th, I believe, but he finds himself down in 8th or 9th and seems to be dropping like a rock.
Good recovery there from Burgrave. Now, the problem that Burgrave had when he entered the corner, he entered the corner with as much speed and gusto as if he had the full racing line, which he really did. And he should have backed off of that entry a bit to try to carry less speed around the bottom. He would have been able to get away with that without scraping the wall. Now, though, we can ride on board with, I believe this is Jerry Isaacs we're on board with now as he closes up to the tail end of the 21 car. Going to make that look to the inside and shoot for it down to turn number 1. And now you can see Burgrave going down and take that line away, and Isaac having to push up to the top. It's going to kind of check up Jason Waller right behind these guys. Waller now only 1 lap down. Remember, Waller was previously 4 laps down, and because of these cautions, he's been able to work his way all the way back with only 1 down. So if he gets another few lucky yellow flags here in a row, he could find himself back on the lead lap here before too long. So that 76 car really digging, and I think he's just kind of biding his time at the moment. Got another change for the lead, though. Graybill takes it into 1.
Absolutely, and these guys, as you said before, they're just walking away from Jordan Groves. They're playing the Chip Ganassi team strategy that we saw work fairly well in the majority of the beginning of the race from Indianapolis this year, and it's really working out for them. The trouble is, though, the drawback to the strategy is fuel consumption, because you are having to both trade off that lead spot of using the most energy to push the air out of the way. While you're trading that off, you're still net using more energy than just about everybody else in the racetrack, especially those who are in packs. So it'll be interesting to see if the speed pays the dividend of the fuel burn. If we continue to have lots of cautions, obviously that's not going to be the case. But long green flag runs, that really did seem to be the edge, because you can get much further ahead of everybody else and could make up for the deficit you might have on pit lane taking extra fuel on to compensate for the burn, as we have another yellow flag here.
And you mentioned that yellow flag coming on out, and this for this incident, that is still spinning there. That was one of the lap cars. That was Landon Benson that wrecked, and that was all by himself coming down through turn 4 off of the north chute, and he made the mistake that we saw. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it might have been Jadinda earlier on in this race where he got too low and lost control on that transition and backed it up into the outside wall. And your race leaders flying around were very lucky that they had room on the top side to get around, because they were not slowing down in time to get around him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the issue with Landon is we to be riding on board here. He didn't get just too low. He got entirely too low, dropped his wheels in the grass here through turn 4, and this is what lost him here. It looks like
not even. He was losing it before. Yeah, he was losing it before on the corner entry before he lost control in the grass. That was just the finishing blow.
Again, a very common thing in Indianapolis. You see these cars, they go through 4 quite loose, especially if they've worn their tires out too much, or if they've got too much weight jacker in there. It's a very common mistake, as we see in turn 1. Typically, it's too much of a push that puts you into the wall. Before, it's quite the opposite. There's a lot of oversteer there that can happen in turn 4. So very thankful he didn't collect anybody else, as we have our leaders now on pit road. This is very interesting.
I think it's been long enough that everybody wants to make that trip down to pit road. Patrick Stein is the only driver to have stayed out. Pavel Bier and others, though, all down into the lane. Jason Wallet, though, this is the caution he needed. He has stayed out. He's going to be back on the lead lap now because of this. Meanwhile, Andrew Kotska already out of pit road, trying to catch up to the field, and looks like it'll be Pavel Bier, Aaron Macquarie to get first out of pit road. In third, Theo Burgrave, though, he also stayed out. So we'll have 2 drivers on Old Rubber that'll be leading the way here for this race at Indianapolis Speedway for the Sim Racers for Mental Health. That is 35 laps in the books and about 165 left to go over at the line this time by. We're going to take a quick step back, and we'll be back in just a few as we get set to go back green flag racing here in just a few moments.
can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flags Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Maconi Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Maconi Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MaconiSetupShop.com and learn why Maconi Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Still under, I think this is our 6th caution flag here on the afternoon. And as we get set to go racing into the evening, you see Aaron Macquarie on his way out of the lane here. He did make an extra trip down and in. Lights are out aboard the pace car. Will be green flag racing this time by. Mentioned before, a couple drivers, interesting enough, stayed out in this one, including Patrick Stein and Devin Adams. They'll be leading the way at the top, and Theo Berggrave did end up taking another trip down a pit road here under this latest yellow flag. Meanwhile, you also had Jason Wallet get his lap back. After he was a lap down, he stayed out, did not pit under this caution flag, so he'll be able to get out there and get on the lead lap, be able to fight with these guys in position. I mentioned before he did need a lucky caution, and well, that caution fell his way just about perfectly. Not a quarter of the way through yet, but we're closing in on that distance as the pace car pulls down and in. Two drivers on older rubber to take us to the green flag.
And that typically, the leader is taking the green on old rubber and all of the killers on fresh. It really creates some interesting scenarios here on these restarts, but it looks like Stern has gotten a really nice getaway here. As Beer's about 5 cars back and closing. Now 2. See the fresh rubber now coming to life as Beer and Graybill are looking to split our provisional leader there going into turn 3. They take it, and it looks like Graybill might have the lead going into 4.
Boy, that got tight. I thought Groves about to run over Stein there. The entry to turn number 4 out of the north chute. We hightail it down the front straightaway, and that old rubber really kicking in for these drivers in the back here. Graybill and Bier pulling away while you can see these guys slow in the background. Bier going to take the lead to turn 1, and meanwhile, Patrick Stein falling back to 4. Then he's almost going to run over Jordan Groves as he tried to go over the over-under through the south chute out of turn 1 down to 2. Didn't work out for him. Jordan Groves hangs on. Patrick Stein trying to see if he can't keep that distance close behind Craig Forsyth. Waiting around that 5th position, trying to find a way through as well. Behind them, Krakowski, Kotska, and Beeman round out the top 8 of the leading pack so far in this race as we get back to green flag racing.
Really interesting here. You see we finally get to see a juxtaposition of tire condition here as we've had some green flag running, and really speaks volumes about how the new rubber here is paying off. I mean, nothing to take away from Beer and Graybill. They've been the class of the field in terms of pace, but really see how hard Patrick Stein's having to work to even keep on
yellow flag
pace. As I hear some crunching in the background and a yellow flag comes out.
Theo Berggrave is the cause of this one, and this was a wreck in the south chute between 1 and 2. I'm willing to bet. Outside wall, yep. Back to the inside, and that's a rough impact into that inside wall. That all used to be guardrail and concrete down there until the later portion of the 2010s, so that only recently got a safety barrier added onto it, and you see right there, there's the hit to that inside barrier, and that's what ripped the left front suspension apart on that 21 car, and it is put us now on caution flag number 7 with 13 cars out of 31 on the lead lap, and only about 16 total now left on the racetrack.
We are down to about 50% capacity on our field here.
We're not even a quarter of the way in.
We're not even a quarter of the way in, so we're waiting though for that that point where we run out of cars to crash and we can get on with it. Hopefully, I think we said this about 30 laps ago. Hopefully, that time is short-coming, because I really would like to see, a full stint or near full stint green flag run to see exactly what's going to play out, what these guys are going to do with the setups they have. Of course, they're standardized, fixed setup for everybody, so everybody's running the same stuff. You can see here that Beer and Graybill have had the pace. That's an easy book to read, but we really don't know what it's doing to their tire wear. Really want to see exactly what these guys have over a long run, because that's what matters, as we see Patrick Stein now taking his pit stop. Evidently, the old tires were enough to convince him now is the time. A few other takers on pit road as well.
I was about to mention that. You got Jason Waller, Macquarie, Isaac Stein, McAdory. Those are the drivers that just came down to pit road. Obviously, Teal Burgrave is in there now, but I believe more of a rather involuntary trip to pit road for the number 16 car, as we'll get ourselves back situated and, again, hopefully be back to green flag racing here before too long. Honestly, the last time I remember seeing a race where you had over half the field eliminated before a quarter of the race was through, it was actually I think it was the 2021 Daytona 500, the one that Mike McDowell ended up winning, where you had that major, what was it, a 22 car pileup on lap 15 of that race, and that obviously was a big mess and a half. Hasn't been quite to that extent. It's been a bunch of smaller wrecks as opposed to one big one in this one around, but about the same energy. You can kind of already tell the energy started to fade away from these drivers, as it's going to be a long night ahead of them. It's looking more and more like this is going to end up being a hot lapping session for a lot of the guys, particularly those at the front. Even in that little 2-lap stint, about the 6th place driver was starting to be relegated back to a bit of a no man's land. Nobody around it, nobody to draft with, nobody to catch you in the draft. And mentioned this race is long enough to wear you down. Well, I imagine that wearing down is happening a bit earlier than it typically does in a race like this.
Yeah, especially in scenarios like this where it's just, you can never get yourself into a rhythm or a groove. It's just constantly interrupted by cautions. It does wear mentally, because it makes it difficult for you to, quote-unquote, stay in the seat, to stay focused on what you're doing. Having these safety car speeds for this long allows the drivers' minds to wander and take their eyes off the prize. So while it's not mentally or it's not physically exhausting for these scenarios, they're basically just traveling highway speed, it is mentally exhausting because you're constantly going back and forth with, all right, now I'm going, now I'm not, now I'm going, now I'm not, now what do I do? Am I making the right strategy call? Are we doing the right thing here? All of these questions remain unanswered in your head, and you start filling yourself with self-doubt. So certainly not the most ideal conditions for the drivers. They want to be out there racing, going fast. They don't want to be going slower than the guys on Highway 465, the beltway around Indianapolis, just outside of the track. They want to be going much, much faster. Climate in this race hasn't allowed them to do that for very long at one time.
Lap 42, it'll be 158 to go. This time by at the line, and I want to once again give a shout out to the folks that helped to put this on over here with the SimRacers4MentalHealth group, and all the work that they've been doing so far to make this event a possibility tonight. It's there's not going to be too many of these left. I mean, I know there's a few send-off broadcasts for the Dallara IR-18, among others like the DW12 and others a bit further down, but we get back to that in a moment as the green flag is back out in the air, and we're back to green flag racing here, and hopefully this time for a bit longer. Pablo Bier has taken off. It's a 4-car breakaway for the lead, and Graybill trying to hound him down for that second position. Watch that bottom line. It's going to be tight off of turn number 2, down the back straightaway. Expect a lead change by the time they get around to turn number 3. Sure enough, Graybill makes the look despite a bit of a defensive move from Pierre. He'll secure the lead into 3 and 4, but the question is, will he have it by the time they get back down to turn 1? My money's on no.
Absolutely not. And here we see Groves again, really strong the first lap, hanging on to this group. Is closer than he has been in quite some time, as we have our 4th place car, Craig Forsyth, in pit road, unscheduled. Again, we have a lead change there as these guys are working together. Groves, again, he's only about 5 car lengths back. He's hanging on. That is exactly the reason why you'd come into pit lane.
Left front tire destroyed, so he's had a crash somewhere on the racetrack. We'll back this one up. This is coming around through turn number 4, and it's all fine. Oh, clipped the outside wall, and he got shot down to the inside wall. So that wasn't even a voluntary entry to pit road.
Well, he's nothing if not a good aim. That was a really nice shot down pit road. Really unfortunate because he was one of my drivers to watch. He had early incidents. He'd worked his way up. He was the first one to take a full stop. And worked his way back up to P4, and he had pace here to stick with Groves and even possibly Beer. So a potential and definite front runner now out of the running. And those are in short supply, it seems like, as we've got the mix-up from what our qualifying grid looked like. P1, 2, 3 are identical, and they are currently in order of their qualifying position. But you go back to Andrew Costa, who's 4th. He started the race 15th. Further behind him, Tyler Beeman in 5th. He started 20 positions further back in 25th. Jet Kokoski is in 6th. That is his starting position. But you go back, Wilhelm Layton, 24th qualifying position. Barry Isaacs, 19th. Jason Wallet, 11th. Patrick Stein, 20th. We have so few single-digit grid positions running now in top 10 here. And, keeping it exciting as we have a couple of packs and pairs here working through, and really want to speak to Jordan Groves here. He's done the best job he's had so far this race. Hang on to that lead pack, and Andrew Kotska is not far behind. As we see Tyler Beeman a little bit further back, but really interesting. If Andrew Kotska can continue driving the way he's driving and stay in touch with this pack, we might have a 4-way battle for the lead yet again.
Down the back straightaway, and Graybill continues to lead the way. I think Pavel Bier has now started to kind of just settle himself down and wait for this race to come to him before he tries to make any sort of moves. You'll look on board with the back end of Graybill's number 29 car as we'll take it down to the round to that front straightaway. Going to be lap 48 this time by, finally closing in on the 1 quarter mark of this race. Almost an hour deep. Pavel Bier takes the race lead away down to turn number 1, and that's some good camera work if ever I did see it, with the rotating shot on board the Dallara IR-18. Now can Graybill challenge back as a bit close to the wall there for Bier, but he got a good drive off of turn number 2, so not enough to hamper him down this run. I think Graybill will have to wait to turn 1.
I think you're right. I mean, Pavel's got really good corner entry into 3 and really good corner exit into 4, so he might hang on to this lead a little longer than just turn 1. But obviously on the flats here, if you're doing all the right things with your controls in the car, the draft is huge here. But as we see, here's entry the 3 and exit out of 4 is superior, and he maintains the lead here even with the advantage of the draft behind from Graybill. And Groves, again, is still hanging tough. He's about a second back now, but he's typically found himself this far back after lap 1 of these restarts. So really nice job. And as these guys in front continue to battle and not work together like the Ganassi cars did this year, that's going to pay dividends for Groves because he's still getting the advantage of their draft even this far back at 220 plus. So really interesting. I'm pulling for him to make it a 3-way battle here. He's doing a really nice job so far.
Groves has been doing a good job so far. He's just been kind of minding his own business, minding his P's and Q's, and he's been trying to just kind of keep himself all sorted towards that tail end of the field, and I'm thinking it's going to be a good run for him yet. before too long, and we'll hopefully be able to maybe even get a run of green flag pit stops coming on up here before too long. Maybe about 30-ish laps or so if the pace continues on this way. The air continues to lead the way from Graybill by about 0.3 of a second for the race lead. Kind of checking in on the rest of the fields, looking pretty quiet, except for 8th place at the moment. Wilhelm Layton and Jason Wallet do battle with one another. And Wallet, mentioned him before, previously 4 laps down, back only to 1 lap down. He's back in the hunt here, and he's now trying to fight for spots inside the top 10. Who would have thought?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been one of those days, man. Anything's possible. And Jerry Isaacs was part of this little 3-way battle, but he has since driven away. He got around Wilhelm Layton and drove away, as we see Jason Wallet doing the same, getting around Wilhelm Layton and taking 1 less car a lap ahead of him out of contention. Actually, I believe Jason Wallet is on the lead lap, so that was a pass for position.
That's what I mentioned before. He got that lap back by staying out under our latest caution from all the leaders pitted.
Is one hell of an effort by Wallet, and his qualifying pace is only about a 10th off of front runners. So if he can get himself back to the front, as he's done quite well so far, having overcome a 4-lap deficit in just 52 laps, he might be a good front runner candidate here towards the end of the race. So another nice job from the booth here for Jason Wallet, as it looks like he is hunting down Jerry Isaacs. Lap times are superior, so we'll see how this plays out.
There's a look to the inside line, down into turn number 1, as Layton going to lose another one. That one to Joe McAdory, a 23 car, breaking into the top 10. Aaron McQuarrie sitting back there in that 12th position, looking like he's the next one to put that number 9 car down to spot it from there. Devin Adams, the last driver, currently on the lead lap, and we've got 15 cars on the track overall, 13 total, still on the lead lap and fighting for positions up here. You look back to the 11th place battle. Wilhelm Layton about to lose that spot to McQuarrie here down the front straightaway, I imagine, as well, maybe not. McQuarrie bobbling slightly on corner exit from 4 and down for 1. It will be spot contained at the moment for Layton, but look at how far out wide he was. Layton's just got no cornering speed.
Yeah, that's right. He is really struggling. I'm not sure if it's mental fatigue or if the car is just not doing what he wants it to, but he is very, very sloppy in the corners these last couple of laps, and his lap time really shows that. He's been about a second off of all of the cars around him the last 2 times by, which is unusual for the previous 5 to 6 laps. So he might be dealing with an issue.
Possibly Devin Adams making a trip to pit road. So previously we thought Adams might be able to fight this one out, but instead no. Devin Adams bailing out and making the trip to pit road. So Adams a bit off cycle here. He's going to pull into his pit stall and get that car up on the jacks. We'll look up to the fight for 6th position and make that 5th. Tyler Beeman and Jeff Kokoski running nose to tail at the moment as they hightailed it down the front straightaway. The number 10 car trying to keep the 8 at bay, and they're running a bit of no man's land amongst themselves in the last spot for the top 5, sitting about 5.96 seconds behind your race leader. Spot made for Kokoski as he goes down the inside into 1, but already Beeman looking like he wants to cross him over out of 2.
This is a really nice battle, one of the few that we have this tight on the racetrack. And we're going to see who takes the advantage of the draft and who is better in the corners here, because the sum of those two is what makes the lap time. And it's not always the car in the back that's got the advantage, although the draft is huge here, as we see Andrew Kokotska really showing a superiority there through 3 and 4, opening that gap up, even with the car of Tyler Beeman having that draft advantage. He's just that much better in the corners that he can overcome it. You can see he's using much more of the racetrack there on turn 1 than Tyler is. Same for turn 2. He's about a half car width more on track out, and that's just going to translate to more speed as we see him driving away 5 car lengths clear of Tyler Beeman, who is enjoying that luxury of the draft, but just can't get it done in the corners.
It's really looking like that's the case. Tyler Beeman caught in the situation that a lot of other drivers are, just falling off on the cornering speed. And obviously that's not to do with the fixed setup, because obviously if everybody's on the same car, it's got to do something to do with the line you're taking. Or maybe it's just burned off his tires this early on here in this one. Your race leader is just lapped, John O'Brien, to put the number 20 car back in 16th place, 11 laps down, and David Graybill getting held up behind the 16th place runner. So Graybill struggling slightly as he'll now have to run down the air further up the road. Now that gap back to about a second. I don't know if he'll be able to catch him from way back there.
Especially if he's got some struggles. And this is what I really wanted to see and touched on numerous times, is we have John O'Brien trying to get involved with Jordan Groves there in turn 1. Very, very close. But it was really just to see the tire wear and the management of the car over a long run. And Graybill, obviously at pole position, fastest lap by far. But Pavel Bier seems to have much better handle on his car and how he's using it up. And Jordan Groves, in fairness, isn't that much further off of Graybill. In a few laps, he has been quicker. So it'll be interesting to see as this run continues if Groves can pay any dividends, or if Pavel Bier can drive away from our pole sitter, David Graybill, as it looks like Graybill's starting to struggle with the car as we have another yellow flag.
Caution is out, and this time it's Jerry Isaacs collected along with Patrick Stein, it looks like, in this one. So 2 cars collected, so possibly a multi-car incident. And actually, don't think it was Isaacs all by himself. So what happened to Patrick Stein is going to be the big question here. Well, look to Jerry Isaacs first. Seems like he wrecked first after all. And for him, oh, wow. That's a weird incident. Just lost off of turn 4. And from there, you're just a passenger. He's going to go face first into the inside wall, completely destroying the left side of the race car. Gonna spin back up. I wonder if he got clipped by Patrick Stein. And
negative. They were 2
oh no, Stein wrecked himself as well.
2 separate incidents, 2 single cars here, but
yeah.
Patrick
it's not
Stein,
the only one. Wilhelm Leighton, a 3rd car. So 3 different cars in 3 different spins at the same place on the racetrack. There's Patrick Stein. Now keep with this one here. There comes Wilhelm Leighton flying up on the scene. He has to scramble low and nailed the ping attenuator.
That's that'll be car done for Wilhelm Leighton.
Oh yeah,
for sure. But it looked like yes, definitely. But Patrick Stein's and just the other guy, forgive me. Anyway, both of them classic oversteer coming out of turn 4. So we talked about that earlier. We have a lot of push-related incidents in turn 1, and it seems like our 3rd and 4th oversteer-related incidents through turn 4. So we're going to see these guys really struggle, and it is because we finally had enough of a run for the tires to get old, as we have late duck into the pit lane. The Tunk 2 were going to stay out, and they saw everyone else behind them coming to the lane and made the last-minute decision there. Very dicey. Very risky move there, but we still have 1 straggler still behind the safety car.
It was a wise move. I think that's actually Devin Adams that's stuck behind the safety car. Right? Adam Thompson behind the safety car. Devin Adams getting a lap back, being waved around the safety car. Robert Smith back there as well, but those guys are obviously laps down. They'll be allowed to come on in this next time by. Everybody so far, though, on the lead lap is in. Aaron McQuarrie will be the first driver to lead them out of pit road. McQuarrie on pit road in 7th place, and I see why. He never made it into his pit stall. He missed his stall and drove on through. So he'll inherit the race lead, but I imagine he'll be in this second time by. Out of the drivers that did manage to get into their stall, though, Pierre is going to be the next one out.
Absolutely, and that's certainly one way to get yourself to the front is just don't stop in your box. Short-term dividends from that move, though, but usual suspects here. It looks like David Graybill, Jordan Groves, Andrew Kotska, And the top 4 have retained their positions. We've got John O'Brien now 11 laps down there in the mix. Jet Kokoski in 5th. Tyler Beeman, big move there. He jumped from 8th to 6th on that pit stop cycle. So really nice job there. 8.8 second pit stop time. So might have taken a little less fuel. Maybe only right side tires there. We'll have to check the pit cards to see how his stop stacked up to everybody else. But 2 spots in pit lane is 2 spots nevertheless.
Macori will be back down in the pit road after he missed his pit stall his first attempt in. He will get in this next time around while the lights go out on the safety car and we go 1 lap to green. 2 more cars get waved around. Going to be Robert Smith and Adam Thompson, 14th and 15th place. Both getting waved around. John O'Brien, meanwhile, getting an end of the longest line penalty here. So not sure what that one's for, but O'Brien going to be sent to the tail end of the field. So interesting development for the number 20 car. It's not like it's going to matter much. He's 4 laps down from the next closest driver to him, which is 7 laps down for the leader. So he's 11 down total. It's not going to matter at all.
We're just getting him out of the way. He was right there between 4th and 5th. So that's sense. Just a move. Non-consequential for him, but just a racing at the front of the field clean as we have few more takers on pit road. Johnny Pit Stop Joe McAdory working stop number 15 of 63 laps. Finds himself on the back straight here. He is the final car in the lead lap and P10. So and then there were 10. We've got 10 cars remaining on the lead lap and we are barely a quarter of the way through the race.
We're down to 12 cars, by the way, in this race. Total, not just on the lead lap. 9 on the lead lap. Sorry, 10 on the lead lap. 12 total from the looks of things. Which might be 13 now that I double check my notes on that one. So we have lost almost 2/3 of the field in about 1/3 of the total race distance. Pace car is in. Pavel Bier going to take it back to the green flag. And already you see the classic Dallara snake down that pit straight. Air clear by 5.
Andrew Kotska
hard to the wall.
That's going to be another yellow.
And that is classic Indianapolis cold tires. Bobbles big, slams the outside wall. Well, now my 12 car number is correct.
And then there were 9 on the lead lap.
Boy, oh boy. Hard shot to that outside wall. Just pancaked it and lost all control instantly. Right there, right when he turned in. He turned in too aggressively. That was the problem there. I mean, obviously, you bobble once, you bobble twice, and you just can't do anything. I think he tried to keep his foot in it as well, which obviously that doesn't help matters, and destroyed the right side instantly and no control whatsoever. Lucky nobody else collected, considering how far of the field he was. That's the plus side about wrecking up to the top instead of down to the bottom.
Absolutely. P4, that could have been disastrous for the field. That could have been another miniature Daytona, as you mentioned earlier. That could have been a big one. Anytime a front runner in a single file restart crashes like that, it can be disastrous. So we dodged a bullet there, and we've still got a healthy car count here on the top lap here. Still anybody's game, but you're absolutely right. It looked like he was just entered with the confidence of warm tires on cold tires and lost the rear end, and it was just all sorts of handfuls. Couldn't get back ahead of the car and smashed right into the wall. I think the big developing story we should be really concerned about is, does Joe McAdory stop this time for his 17th pit stop?
Oh my gosh.
Does he come in for the top up? I think he's going to do it.
Oh boy.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton, and he is taking to the pit lane with a number of other cars here.
McAdory, the only driver in for the second driver for double-digit pit stops, and Macori just passed the number for 10. That's going to be interesting as Macori out of pit road. McAdory, again, in for 17, and I wonder if at this point, McAdory is trying to see if he can get the number of pit stops he's going to take this race to be as high as the number that he's actually got on his car, which is 23. which honestly,
Well,
the possibilities there.
Make that. He'll for sure make that. Another interesting statistic here is Joe McIndory has more total pit stops than the top 6 runners combined so far.
I wonder why.
Race. No idea. I mean, he's just very fond of his crew, I believe, and there's a possibility he's just getting an ice cream bar every time he comes in, which is explanation for why he's in pit lane so much. But to be honest, it's really not a bad move when you're the last car in the lead lap. You have absolutely nothing to lose to come in and top up, or do whatever service you have to, make adjustments, what have you. It's really not terrible thing to do, because in the end, with the way that they're doing end of line and the way they're cycling the leaders up to the front, he's not losing anything by doing any of this. And that's one of the things that I look at when I do race strategy is I'm not afraid of pit lane, because all of my teams that I work with, I have stellar pit crews, so they're not a liability, and they keep my playbook open. And if there's no downside to doing it, especially doing it under caution and inconsequential matters like this, there's no reason to be afraid of pit lane, as it appears that Joe McIndory is back on pit lane. I think he might
18.
just be trying to inflate that count at this point, but again, it's inconsequential, and it's keeping us talking about it. So keep that pit crew working, Joe. They're earning their money today.
Your prediction is he's coming on down, get him ice cream bar or something every now and again. My best bet, he's in a heated text message argument right now, some Facebook group somewhere, right? And every time he pits, he has to send like 3 messages out, and hopes that somebody hasn't destroyed his arguments or something whenever he comes back down to pit lane. That's what he's doing. He's checking in on like his Instagram feeds and all this sort of thing whenever he comes back down to the lane. It wouldn't surprise me at this point in time. We've even seen cases in the real world of drivers using their phones in the middle of a race. Most notably, the driver, it was during the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring, during a qualifying run, a driver of the touring car class qualified P3. He ended up uploading the video and recorded himself of the celebration in the car. They ended up on the actual broadcast as well. This was in the real world a few years back, so it wouldn't even be the first time as the pace car leads the way off a turn 4 to the front straightaway.
Absolutely, and we'll see hopefully a good clean start here, as the usual suspects of Beer and Graybill are up front, and Graybill is right on the bumper. Good launch from Beer, not telegraphing anything. Good 5-car gap going into 1. Have that sealed up, and he'll leave the fight with Graybill for Groves, Kokoski, and Eamon right behind. As we have our breakaway 4 group, which seems to be the magic number of the front 4. So far this race, they are off and away, and we've got another pack of 4 shortly there behind them. So clean through the first 2 turns here. We have an exchange for the lead. Graybill takes it back from Beer. Groves now right on the bumper. Could we see him finally get a taste of second place here?
Possibly, as he'll try to go on the hunt here down the pit straightaway, and we'll keep tabs on all this fighting. There's a move, the air, look for the lead, dives to the lead, down into turn number 1. David Graybill going to be getting himself all sorted here. He's going to run down that second position now, try to see if he can't hunt back the race lead. You've also got that pack of 4 a bit further back, 8th, 7th, 6th, and 5th. All running those to tail as well, as there's Devin Adams looking underneath Tyler Beeman. Jason Wallet going to go through as well, as again, Beeman still struggling on overall pace. Wallet tried to go 2 for 2, but got cut off by Devin Adams.
It really looked like he was going to have that, and I think it's only a matter of time for Jason Wallet. He's again, he's the one I think we should watch, as he has a challenge here from Aaron McQuarrie on the front straight. Over the yard of bricks, McQuarrie might say, "I'll take all 3, thank you very much." It looks like Beeman found himself in no man's land high to turn 1. He's now at the tail end of our 4-car group, from 5th back to 8th. And he's got another run back on Jason Wallet, who looked like he was on a charge exactly 1 lap ago, and now he's falling back and under threat. McQuarrie really on a tear here. He wants to assert dominance of this mid-pack group, and I think he's got the mind about him to do it.
This could be a good run here. Down to turn 1 goes Devin Adams trying to chase after Aaron Macquarie for the 5th position. Meanwhile, Macquarie now he's starting to build a bit of a gap up here over the 6th place guys. Adams has a horrible run through turn number 2. So that's going to give Macquarie a lot of breathing room to work with up here while Tyler Beeman tries to run down Adams for that 6th position. Jason Wallet hanging around on the tail end as well. Back in 8th, he'll try to close in on the hunt as well and make the look for 7th place through turn 4. You don't have to see a move executed through the chute. Going to at least initiate it, and he's going to go around the outside line. So taking the long way around Tyler Beeman, who's still no pace. And it looks like he's struggling on the top end speed now rather than the cornering speed, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was interesting. It almost looked like he had the Vin Diesel nitrous launch there going down the front straight, but that was just much better of a launch there out of 4. But yeah, it almost looks as though Tyler's hanging on to a bit of a parachute there on the front straight. I don't know if he's made a poor adjustment on the last round of pit stops or if he incurred a little bit of damage that's affecting his aero. It'd be an interesting thing to watch and see how that plays out, but he is falling under threat now. Adam Thompson and Joe Pitstop McAdory, who have their own little battle as they are catching up to this little pack here.
Mention catching up to that pack, and whoa, bit of a close shave there. Looked like from McAdory there off of turn number 1 as he got a bit out of sorts. Adam Thompson tried to dive back down low to chase after him for 9th. No move though. So you've got this scrap for 8th, 9th, and 10th, and then you've got obviously 6th and 7th still nose to tail, and fight for the lead starting to back off a little bit as well as time goes along. So you've got about 3 distinct little battles here across the racetrack. It's about the best you can do at the moment, with now down to 11 cars out there on the racetrack, and one of those is 4 laps down. One of those is 12 laps down. 9 remain on the lead lap, and still have yet to cross that halfway point at lap number 100, as we'll keep clicking the laps away one by one, and should be in good shape by the end of this thing to have ourselves a solid outing.
Absolutely, and I think we're going to finally see those long-duration green flag runs, which, as we've seen with that last one, really played in the hands of Pavel Bier, and really just shows he's the best car, not necessarily on pace, but handling his equipment over the course of a long run, and really that's what should matter most here. We just haven't seen it because we've worked so many caution periods up till now, but you say with only 12 cars on track and only 9 really for position, we're going to see a lot of these guys calm down, and our pool of cars to mangle and wreck has been reduced, so our risk for caution now is reduced. I think it'll be interesting to see too how some of these other battles develop. As you said, we've got a couple of packs on track that are in touch with each other, and it's just enough. Any single mistake will completely change the complexity of the top 10, and it really isn't difficult to make a mistake in these cars as the tires wear on. If you're not on top of it, if you're not on top of your controls and your tools, and you can find yourself with the weight distribution in the wrong place, and the car doesn't perform exactly as you hoped it would in turns 1 and 2, as opposed to turns 3 and 4. As we've seen so far this race, there's been pushes through turn 1, big oversteer through turn 4. So even though the track is identical, the sense that same corner radiuses, same banking angle, same length, each end of this massive circuit, there's 2 different monsters. They just have the same face. So really keeping up with everything that these guys can and driving the car that they have is really going to be key, but makes it very easy to make a very small mistake and completely change the game for you and everyone around you.
We've seen that so many times already today. I mean, look at what speak of the devil, there's another mistake that's just taken out a couple of drivers. Macquarie and O'Brien getting wiped out in turn number 4. So we are back to another yellow flag, and that is just unfortunate, and we're right on board with Aaron McQuarrie here. DC O'Brien spinning it. Oh, nowhere to go for Aaron McQuarrie. He had to pick one line, top or bottom. He picked the wrong one and got body slammed into that inside wall after T-boning John O'Brien in the left side pod. That was about the hardest hit we've had all race long, and O'Brien just lost it on the curb. We talked about it earlier in the race. You cannot hit that curb, and that is a hell of a hit there for the number 20.
Yeah, that was tough, and just like you said, it's the kind of incident and the kind of decision making. You've got a 50-50 shot. You can't see anything, and unfortunately, coin didn't land on heads there for Mr. McQuarrie, which is unfortunate. He was our 5th place runner at the time. Really, we should be talking about the near hit of Jet Kokoski there, as he was right on the bumper of John O'Brien when that spin happened. He was mere inches away from collecting O'Brien as he went around. So as we ride aboard with Jet here, really magnificent save. I don't know if there was much of skill more so than luck attached to it, but see him going around and just inches away from the rear wing.
That is all luck right there. That was Kokoski had nothing to do with that one. If fate had said he's going to slide up a bit further, it absolutely would have been that way. We'll ride on board with Kokoski now as O'Brien loses it there. Just shoot up to the top, follow the racing line, and right about there is the hit to the inside wall. I think it's interesting how Aaron McQuarrie actually launched up and did a full 180 pirouette before pancaking the inside wall with the right side of the race car, the same side of the car that actually hit O'Brien. You don't see that very often. Thought for a minute with how hot out air that car got, he was going to slam into the catch fence, but just barely managed to keep it below the safer barrier.
We've got a lot of activity here in pit lane. Pavel Beer ducks in, and David Graybill feints going into pit road and stays out to take the lead. So our top 2 are now split up for the first time this race, as we've got Pavel Beer on pit lane going to his box, with Jeremiah Forbes, Jason Wallet.
Might be behind there. They're in turn
others.
4 right now.
Oh, it could be. Yes, that would explain why Pavel Beer is in P3. This has already happened. But, so Pato Kokoski, as we talked about earlier, dodging the bullet of O'Brien, now finds himself 2nd overall behind Graybill because he did not take the stop. Pavel Beer's pit stop only cost him 1 position. So really interesting call that I personally like. I said, in real life, I'm not afraid of pit road in terms of strategy calls. And for Pavel to only effectively lose 1 position to get more fuel and or new tires, as we see a lot of the replay of the feint and the games being played into and out of pit lane, Pavel's really sitting pretty. He's got the best equipment and best fuel load of anybody. It really only cost him 1 position. That is a trade-off I will take any day, especially given that Beers got the pace over Kokoski. I think he'll make quick work of him and be right on Graybill's bumper, and he'll be in the best position to take a long run, which hopefully we get now as the safety car lights are out and we approach turn 3.
Top 2 have not pitted for the last 17 laps. They were pitted on lap 61. Everybody else on lap 78, 79, or 75, depending on what lap they were on themselves, whether their laps down or not. The 2 that stayed out, David Graybill, and you mentioned Jet Kokoski as well. Pavel Bier looking set then to take the race lead easily on this restart. We're down to 9 cars total on the racetrack, not just 9 cars on the lead lap. It's 9 total, 8 now on the lead lap. Adam Thompson, the only driver, laps down. He is 3 down on the racetrack. Pace car is into pit road. And we'll once again leave it in the hands of David Graybill to take us to the green flag with 120 laps to go.
Super easy start for Graybill. As usual, when he takes a restart, he's 5+ car length gap going into 1. As we see Beer already on the bumper of Jet, Pato O'Ward Kokoski, as he goes to the inside here. Very easy pass. Make that stick going into 3. And now Pavel Beer has got himself into second as I hear some crunching in the background. Hopefully we stay green here. Looks like we are.
I believe that crunching you may have heard possibly a scrape to the wall for Tyler Beeman off of turn 3. And another one there, and a broken car for Adam Thompson. He's going to make a late scramble to pit road as he connected with the outside wall in 4.
He cannot catch a break here, but thankfully it happened late in the lap, and Adam had the presence of mind to get himself out of the way into pit road and out of harm's way so he can continue green here. Really nice work, presence of mind, huge competitor respect there as we see Pavel Beer taking his rightful spot in the top 2 as Jordan Groves now all over the back of Jet Kokoski in the Aero McLaren complimentary livery of Jet Kokoski. Is this going to be a move into 1? No, and we hear more crunching. Where is that coming from? We're running out of cars to run into the wall. We are still green here, thankfully, as Jordan Groves. It seems like Jordan's got good pace, but he struggles once he's about 5 to 10 car lengths back from a car. So not sure why he continues to struggle like that, but he's very strong when he's on the bumper of cars in front of him. So hopefully he can reel Koski back in just a little bit, but looks like Koski's superior on corner exit here through 4. So it might be a tall order for Groves to hold touch here, but we find an unlikely hero at the front here in Kokoski, which is very interesting. He went from running sort of mid-pack and dodging a bullet there from John O'Brien to now finding himself in 3rd place and running very, very strong.
And you look now up to the top 2 here, but there's Pavel Bier trying to close up to David Graybill, half a second separate them. And I think what we're seeing is a big part to do with dirty air right now, which is what's allowing for this separation in the cars. The draft of the Dallara IR-18s, especially on the straights, is super powerful. But it's like you run into a wall when you hit the corners, right? Because you have to be within that little bit of a pocket that the car in front of you can kind of push out of the way in the air. And that pocket is shifting and flowing a lot greater when you get around to the corners. That's why you can close up so much in the straights but still fall so far back in the corners. Unless you're right up on the gearbox of the cars. Like, I think if you're within about 0.3 of a second, you can have a reasonable expectation to stay close. Oh, and the caution is out again. And this time it is Tyler Beeman who's destroyed the number 10 car, and looks like he has taken Devin Adams with him. So another 2 cars eliminated. Well, that should take us back down to 7 then total left in this race. It's about the total number of cars that finished the race the last time these guys had this race, as I have been informed via the YouTube chat. As here is Tyler Beeman, just lost control all by himself. Loose car on the ice of the corner, and he's going to get run over by Devin Adams, who, again, just nowhere to go.
I hate to see it. I mean, that was they were such a good pairing in that mid-pack range, running well together, and unfortunately we see a little loose out of Beeman and Adams. It seems like Adams couldn't decide which way to go. He didn't want to flip the coin at all, and unfortunately that was the wrong call. Going down the middle doesn't always work. Unfortunately, we are down 2 more cars.
Down 2 more cars indeed. There's the hit. There's a bit of air caught there as well for Devin Adams. That car almost took flight, which would have been almost reminiscent of what happened to Scott Dixon back in 2017 during the race here at the Brickyard for 500 miles way back when. But meanwhile, we are under caution again. I believe this is, I've lost count, but I think we're at about number 9. We'll take another step back. We are 14 laps away from halfway as the entire field is down to pit road.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flags Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Maconi Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Maconi Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MaconiSetupShop.com and learn why Maconi Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Still under the caution period, turn number 4. I believe we're going to be lights out this time by. It's, I think at this point, Tyler, where I think we have to start to propose a very real question now that we're down to, I'm not exaggerating, 6 cars currently on the racetrack. What happens if we actually do tear up every single car out here? I mean, does the race end early? I think problems for my co-commentator up here in the broadcast booth, but I think at that point the race would either end early or we let the clock expire. There is a 4.5-hour time limit on this race. I certainly hope we don't end up having to fall back on the time limit if we run out of cars to wreck in this race, but you never quite know. Scott Rickard is back out on the racetrack. He crashed way back on lap number 15, 69 laps down, and he's back out onto the racetrack to pick up some extra spots. So you may as well, although he's got a 5-lap gap up to Kamal Murad who in 19th, and, well, it's a good 21 laps back up to Theo Bergrave at the moment. But hey, a lap's a lap.
At this point, as long as you're running, you're guaranteeing yourself a top 10. So he's got the time to catch up. We're still on the bad side of halfway at 88 out of 200 laps. So there's no time like the present for Scott Rickard to claw back plenty of these positions, and he could very well garner himself a top 5 if we continue at the rate we're going today.
To kind of sum up how this race has gone along, David Graybill actually had a physical run-in with Pavel Bier on this latest caution period. He ran into the back of Graybill. The excuse for that, he was on Instagram. That was in turn 1 lap ago. We're in lap number 89. We've taken it back to the green flag. 112 more laps left to go in the 500-mile race for SimRacers4MentalHealth tonight as we hightail it back down to turn number 2. To the back straightaway. Top 6 all on the lead lap. And then there's Scott Rickard, 69 laps down.
And the usual suspects trading places at the usual place. Turn 3, lap 1. See Pavel Bier take that lead back from Graybill. Graybill right back on the bumper. Clearly the Instagram-induced contact hasn't slowed down Bier much here. As we have Jordan Groves, they're hanging on. I'm really pulling for him as he goes wide. They're missing the apex at 1. That's going to slow him down. I'm really pulling for him to hang on to this front pack. I think if he can do it, he can put some pressure on these guys, and it'll be interesting to see how they react, because these two in the front, Bier and Graybill, have yet to have the pressure put on them other than from each other.
It's almost like these guys have had to race the track more than they've had to race each other at this point in time, as we're single file down the front straightaway. And I have a feeling, this might just be a theory, right? I think we're at that point where I think these guys are more just going to run it single file out. Nobody's really going to want to push it all that hard. Just see if you can make it to the end of the race by now, as David Graybill right in front of Jordan Groves, the driver we're on board with now, as he tries to close up, and maybe your top 3 might be getting some extra battling going on here before too long. Tell you what, it's going to be interesting when we do our field rundown later on in this race. And interesting developments. We have a new competitor on the field. William Kruska has finally made his way onto the racetrack, or he's making his way onto the racetrack right now. He's about to take his first lap of the entire race, if you can believe it or not, in the number 6 car. So, hey, better late than never, I suppose. 92 laps down. Just a hunch. Might be out of the fight for a win here.
It's a bold strategy, Nolan. See how it plays out for him.
Boy.
But the rate this has been going, it's not out of the question. All it takes is Beer and Graybill to misjudge handing off the baton for draft partners and end up in the wall. It could be anybody's game.
I hate the fact that I want to say you're wrong. There's no way he's going to be able to close up those 92 laps. But you're at the same time possibly right. Could you imagine that? The top 6 crash themselves out, so does Ricard. We have to add another 100 laps on just to allow for Kruska to take the lead lap and then run the other 90 laps out or so.
Again,
I think that'd be a first in general.
It is statistically possible. Not out of the question given the way we've been going so far today.
Oh, boy. We're knocking about one car every 20-ish laps or so, give or take?
Oh, on average, we're looking at something like a car every 3 laps so far.
Well, I think the 3 cautions before we can make a full lap for around lap 18 kind of inflates those numbers slightly, if I'm being honest.
Sure, but they did happen during the race, and I've lost 25 cars in 94 laps. So yeah, one every 3.8 laps or so.
Well, to prove the point, he just made his way up to 28th place by passing 3 from the pits: Greg Dale, Nathaniel Davis, and Rob Gregoire. So he'll continue to make up those positions. Theoretically, he could get all the way up at the moment. If everybody finishes as they are, he'd be finishing about 8th by the time this race is over.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, there's no downside for him starting the race here this late, because he, by default, if he just keeps the car clean, is going to easily get himself into the top 10.
Still got 3.5 tenths of a second separating Vierre from Graybill. It's about another 7 tenths of a second back to Jordan Groves. Got a 1.2 seconds back to Kokoski. 6 tenths back to Wallet. And then the second back to McAdory. So it's pretty evenly spaced out between about 3/4 and a second and a quarter at the moment. So it's even spreading. I think it's kind of the sign that everybody's a bit done with cautions and they want to just let this race finally run out to the end.
We can only hope here, but like I said earlier, and I think we're finally getting to that threshold, we're starting to run out of cars. So hopefully the crashing is behind us. We can get on with it here, but fortunately with pace difference of the cars we have running, I think we're going to end up seeing quite a bit of separation and a lot of like single car pack, and there's really not much you can do to prove your position if you're a single car here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But we will see here and hope as the tires wear down, we get these cars closer and closer together and have a bit more of a show than what we've got now.
I wish I had anything more to say to that, but at this point, we're really kind of stuck in a bit of a holding pattern while we wait for, I think at this point, next round of pit stops. That's really at this point what we're waiting for is for green flag pit stops to get underway. We saw a couple drivers coming on down early in this race to take some pit stops. That was, I want to say about 30-ish laps ago at the end of our longest green flag run, but they were off cycle and coming in very, very early. And then, of course, we had another caution to kind of break up the flow in order of that event. So still have not had a full run of green flag pit stops, but hopefully we'll get to see that this time around. It's not as easy of a pit road to get down as people think. I mean, you look at pit road, you think, oh, it's easy. just a straight shot in, and you're golden. Tell you what, it is not easy to get this car slowed from 230 miles an hour to 60 without spinning out or locking up in a span of about 3 seconds while taking as little physical time as possible to get yourself down to that speed.
When we saw even captain consistency in real life, Scott Dixon lost himself the race this year. A very, very marginal pit lane speed violation because he did just that. He locked the wheels at the very closing stages of his deceleration and did not slow enough as he hit the control line of the cones to start measuring pit speed, and he was over by, I think, 0.8 of a mile an hour, and that cost him getting his face yet again on the Borg Warner Trophy. So you say it's incredibly difficult, and it's enshrouded in this veil of ease. That's exactly what that pit lane is. It's so easy to screw it up. Even the best 7-time champions can do it.
It's not the only one either. It's worth noting you've had other drivers that have even crashed in recent years coming on down into pit road as well that have had very similar incidents getting down into the lane. I believe Briscoe was among the few in the last couple of years that found himself crashed down and into pit road. And trying to think back, I believe it may have been, I want to say McGuinness that wrecked as well while he was on his way in. I might be thinking of somebody else completely different, though, so you can correct me again if I'm wrong on that one. But we've had a few drivers in the real world that have even crashed into pit road, usually by locking up the rears and filing their way down into that 500-mile long race. So we've had pit road had its share of incidents. And even back in 2020, you had the race come to an end after somebody spun out off of 4 and slammed on into the pit barrier. Side update on William Kruska. He's up to 25th, just past Noah Janinda, as well as Jeremiah Forbes and Cody Richardson, who are all 91 laps down as of now. We are halfway through your race tonight. 101 laps down, 99 to go. So let's take a rundown top to bottom of your field, or I guess what's left of it. Pavel Bier leading the way by half a second over David Graybill. Jordan Groves back in third with Jack Kokoski in fourth. Jason Wall is back at fifth with Joe McAdory in sixth. That rounds out the cars on the lead lap. We enter a very extensive used car lot. Devin Adams down in seventh place with Tyler Beeman in eighth. Adam Thompson is ninth. Aaron McQuarrie will be rounded out your top 10 here for the moment, Tyler.
And we go down to Andrew Kotska, one of our front runners there in 11th. Robert Smith, John O'Brien, Wilhelm Layton, Jerry Isaacs, Patrick Stein, Greg Forsyth in 17th. Joe Burgrave, who had a really strong run there up at the front from the starting position of 31st down in 18th. Scott Rickard, Kamal Murad, Landon Benson are top 21, and then Aaron Brown for 22, starting our first car 87 laps down.
Tyler Coogan is back in 23rd position. William Kruska just made his way up by another driver, the likes of Michael Chin, who sits in 25th place at the moment, still on pit road. Noah Janinda, Jeremiah Forbes, Cody Richardson, Greg Dale, Nathaniel Davis, and Rob Gregoire round out the 31 car field here today. 102 laps down for Dale. Davis and Gregoire did not make it out of lap number 1. Change in hands for the fourth position moments ago taking place on the racetrack as Jason Wallet made his way up and by Jack Kokoski down to turn 1.
Good to see these guys together again. Very similar pace, so I think this is going to be very akin to our 1-2 battle of Beer and Graybill. Evenly matched. I think they're going to see a lot of trading that fourth position between these two, and hopefully they can keep it clean as they do so. They're quite a ways back from P3 Jordan Groves, who is still in that groove of being about 15 car lengths off of P2, as we see David Graybill himself about 5 car lengths off of Pavel Beer in the lead. And again, we talked about this last time we had a decent run, is Graybill's car seems very strong on a short run. Beer's superior on a long run. It's our Jason Wallet, Jet Kokoski battle continues to rage on. don't count out pit stop Joe McAdory there back in 6th. He is not far behind this, and as these two continue to slow each other up, if they're not working together like they should be on the Ganassi protocol, that could open the door for Joe McAdory to take some more positions here. He's quietly snuck himself up 30th starting position to 6th and a staggering 22 pit stops so far this race. So eyes are going to be on him. He's the quiet thief in the night for positions here. So really interesting to see that. And that really rounds out our top 6. And our 6 still on the lead lap.
Yeah, we still got all 6 on the lead lap, though. About a 9.4 second spread between them, so has dropped off somewhat. He's back to have about second. No, sorry, these are the 0.3 of a second guys that are separated. They got 5 seconds up to the 3rd place driver, about a 1.5 seconds back to 6th. So, excuse me, that somehow got myself lost with only 6 cars. You wouldn't think that'd be possible, but we find our ways up here to have our moments, slight lapses in concentration. And while we're working our way through, I mean, we're just kind of in that holding pattern at the moment. There's not any action on track at the moment. We're waiting for green flag pit stops really roll around before we'll get our next bout of action kicked on up here. Why don't we delve into some of the memories? Obviously, you've got the IR-18, the DW12, and the IR-05. They're also going to be on the iRacing service, but obviously with the very, very unfortunate news coming out lately, we're not going to be able to feature them on any broadcast going forward, which is such a massive shame that we've had here. And obviously, it's not something that a lot of folks are pleased about, but we can at least take the time to reminisce of some of the good memories we've had with these cars. So, Tyler, I'll open up the panel to you first here. Do you have you ever gotten a win in any of these cars? And if so, why don't you tell us the story behind it for a bit here?
No, I haven't actually worked with these cars.
Oh.
I've had a couple of opportunities to do so. Just regrettably, the timing with the sports car schedules I was running conflicted too much for me to do it. You know, it's one thing to run the Indy 500. It's a remarkable event, but if I have to bail for 15, 20, 25% an entire sports car season just to make it work, because it is the entire month of May, it's not a sensible decision for me. So I've never actually, gotten in the spotter tower here in Indianapolis and done the real world version of this race. It's something definitely on my bucket list, because I have some pretty major wins in sports car racing as a spotter, among other positions, including the 24 Hours of Daytona, 12 Hours of Sebring. So I really would like to get on the roof here, either at turn 1 or turn 3, which is where they keep the spotters here for the 500. A lot of my good spotter friends have done it. A couple of them have won it, which is very cool to say the least. But certainly a race I'd love to do for the experience, because oval racing is really kind of out of my wheelhouse, but something I certainly would like to try. But there have been so many good memories with this chassis. I think when they released it, it got a lot of undue criticism, I think, for the fender covers, quote unquote, on the side pod, and obviously the aero screen was quite the taboo subject for many years, and that's
kind of like the Halo.
Yeah, exactly, and that sort of has sort of gone by the wayside, because we have seen so many instances where that has been a help. I've got some personal asterisks to the side, because I'm big on track safety first and foremost. So a lot of times when guys point to the Halo as what saved Romain Grosjean, they're not wrong. My question is why that particular guardrail was left unprotected, and that particular angle to the flow of traffic. There's a lot of things like that, but unquestionably, this chassis has provided quite good racing all across the board for the many years that it's been in service, whether it's ovals, street circuits, road circuits. It's been really a great piece, and a lot of people really harp on the fact that it's a spec, quote-unquote, chassis, although there's an infinitesimal amount of adjustments you can make on them, and it's where the engineers make their money. But sure, they're not a Formula One car, but I think the quality of racing with these particular chassis is far superior to anything F1 could ever dream of. So, I mean, we've had just great races. Like I said, the 500-mile races are always classic. We have some a couple of years ago where so few cars from the original finished, as is our situation here. We've had ones where different strategies have been playing out, and you've got 6 different cars on 6 different fuel strategies going into the final stint or the final 20 laps, and you don't know who's going to win, and nobody does for that matter. And you have memories like Helio coming out of nowhere and winning a race with Mike Shank Racing, who is a big car stalwart. So you love to see that, and as you said, there's just so many memories. As we're on board here with Jordan Grove, looks like we've...
To the replay, pass for second about a lap ago, and that was Graybill getting up into the outside wall, so we nearly lost another driver, and that's what allowed Groves up into that second position. But whatever it was, Graybill not phased. Good save, though, by the 29 car, as now Graybill try to hijack after Jordan Groves, but I don't think he'll be able to get there. Oh, he's pitting. So Graybill in a pit road, lock it down, and I think just got away with that on the entry. But first run of green flag stops here. I have a feeling, though, this is a reaction to damage from that harsh hit to the outside wall.
I agree. That's almost certainly what this is, as we see some name in the top 2 that isn't Beer or Graybill. Really unfortunate, but as I said earlier, it looked like Graybill's car begun transition into quite the handful as the tire wear wore on, and it seemed to be a major factor for him, as though it's a quick on-time pit stop at 8.4 seconds stationary. So perhaps not too much in terms of repair going on. Graybill is back on track, finds himself in the 5th position. We've got Jet Kokoski in pit lane. That's why he's down in 6th, but does Graybill go a lap down here, as we have Pavel Beer about 25 car lengths back and closing as they enter turn 3?
So I have some news regarding William Kruska, actually. I mentioned him earlier. He has somehow been disqualified from this race. And I'm trying for the life of me to find out where this happened. Lap number 14 was when he first stopped having laps counted. So I'm assuming that is where he had his issues go awry. And from the looks of things, a possible speeding penalty that he just didn't bother to serve. I can't say I blame him, but he then got disqualified on his lap number 19, which is why he is now out of this race. So you wouldn't think we'd be able to disqualify a driver. Here we are. You mentioned Pavel Bier down to pit road. He is going to see where he's going to come out in regards to everybody else. Groves has inherited the race lead as a result of all this, so it does look like this is actually a good time for some scheduled pit stops. Bier is off and away. Here comes Graybill trying to run him down in 1 and 2. This could get close here on pit exit, actually. Could we see Graybill actually go for a potential provisional lead here outside of 2? This is going to get tight here on the exit of pit road.
This is really, really interesting from 0 to hero. David Graybill right now on the bumper, going high. Going to be an easy pass here. More momentum than here, obviously, but once those tires get up to temp, I think Beer's going to have the advantage yet again. Of course, his car hasn't been in the wall, so won't have any residual damage or anything here, as he's right back on the bumper of Graybill almost immediately now, side by side, and clear into 1. Beer takes the lead back again. Very interesting, but now we have our leader Groves, yet again another name that isn't Beer or Graybill on the top of the pylon now. See where Groves plays out here. Might end up somewhere in between the two of the duo of Graybill and Beer, now about 22 seconds back on track and closing. Akadori, Mr. Pit Stop himself, has yet to pit out of this lead group, and as such, he takes the lead of the race for the first time. So very interesting things playing out of here, but we finally have some mix-up at the front of the field, as we've got Groves now merging back onto the track just behind Beer and Graybill.
And McAdory, the last driver who waited on the pit, is down into pit road as well. Scott Ricard, by the way, has also taken his trip back down to the roads, and he has pulled down out of his car, and it looks like he is retired as well. So we are down to now 5 drivers total out here on the racetrack, as McAdory was the last driver to pit. He'll filter back in this field. So we'll again re-enter our holding pattern and hold station until we figure out what's going to go on down the line. Back to our earlier conversation, though, I didn't actually know that about you. So I actually know you were a spotter for Real World Motorsports. So I learned something new about you today. I do track marshal work myself, so we should catch up sometime. Get just compare stories about how the motoring world looks like from different perspectives. I've never been up on a spotter stand, so I'd be interested to hear how that works. The only success I've actually had in the Delar IR-18 myself has been in the virtual world, and it was a race a couple years ago now at the Michigan International Speedway, but I still do remember it vividly. It's the only race I've had in the oval open wheel side of things on the iRacing service, and I got it by taking a bit of a brave move for the lead with 2 laps to go, and then a caution came out that ended the race. But it didn't get the win that it wanted to, which was by taking the checkered flag on a green flag run. But like they say, a win's still a win, and I still have a very fluid memory of that one. And since I've kind of taken a step back from the online racing scene myself as an actual driver and turned more into commentary work and maybe some crew chief work on the side for some buddies of mine, I think it's safe to say that that's going to remain to be my only success here in this car for the time being. But it sounds like we both have our stories of venues like this elsewhere. I don't work at a track that's anywhere near as prestigious as stuff like this one. You mentioned, of course, you've done some work on this 12 Hours of Sebring, the Daytona 24. So I haven't been able to be out to events as big as those, but so far, I think if there's ever a race I would want to go out to, it'd either be probably Martinsville or Talladega, to be completely frank. The Goodman Festival of Speed out in England, that's always a good treat to watch on the YouTube whenever that rolls around in the summer.
Yeah, that's quite the event. I'd love to go to that one myself, but just because there is so much history and so much cool cars on display. I think it's one of the last bastions of true motorsport passion, because so much amazing equipment comes out all the time. I mean, I know we have our historic races here, but Goodwood's just a completely different monster, and I'd love to get out to that one as well. And you know, you mentioned you're a quarter marshal. That's actually where I started many years ago. So I have experience not only on the spotter stand or the roof, but also on the corner gazebos of places like VIR, which is my home track. Yeah, at Indianapolis, I have had a bit of success. I worked for Action Express Racing, and the years that Grand Am ran there, we actually won one of the Daytona prototype races at Indianapolis, which featured the original Formula One Grand Prix circuit, which is far superior to anything that they've got in the inside of this oval these days. That is my personal opinion. And I think it's echoed by many others. I mean, a lot of the changes they made to the Formula One circuit were negative changes, and it still retains that today, especially the whole infield chicane bit from Indianapolis turns 2 and turns 1 that used to just transition straight onto the banking and effectively use the banking the wrong direction entry of 2 all the way to just before entry of 4. And you had mentioned earlier, actually, the 2005 Formula One Grand Prix, which was the whole tire debacle. I was high in Grandstand E, which is corner entry of Formula One Grand Prix circuit, turn 1, when all of that happened. So I was about this close to riding with all the Colombians who were there to see Juan Pablo Montoya drive, but it was quite the spectacle to experience in person, and that was back in my very much fandom days. But just to see all of that, and an interesting prescript to that story was I ended up running into David Coulthard in a hotel in downtown Indy, going to some event. I think it was to actually meet Juan Pablo Montoya. He got out of an elevator and he looked utterly furious. And all I could muster, this is the last time I remember being starstruck, but all I could muster was, "Hey, David." He's a huge McLaren fan, so of course, like I was like not going to get anything else uttered other than his name. And he did completely change his facial expression, greeted us kindly as he walked out of the elevator. And I just always thought that was very odd, but he had clearly just gotten the news. Everybody on Michelin tires was just going to pull in after the pace lap in protest, and he clearly wasn't happy about it. So really interesting times, but the reason that all of that happened was diamond cutting of the Indianapolis circuit that we had mentioned in our pre-race. And the Bridgestone tires actually specifically designed for Indy because Firestone supplies is part of the same group. So they had all of the data from all of the oval racing happened in Indianapolis, and they understood track surface infinitely better than Michelin did. And as such, they developed a tire that was specific for that track. And the success, they didn't have the tire blowout issues that Michelin did simply because they designed a tire built for the surface. And but that's not the first time that that's happened. When we ran Continental tires in Dam, they were the sole supplier for all classes from the street tuner category, which were your home-built Honda Civics effectively, all the way up to the Daytona prototype, the top level. They had to develop a specific tire for Indianapolis for us to run there. They called it the I-Tire, and it, in fact, was such an improvement overall over their offering that they were giving us across the board that the I-Tire that they made for Indy became a race compound they used from years after that. I think that was 2013 when we ran in Indianapolis, but they had to go back to the drawing board. Continental race tires, of course, are made by Hoosier, which is an Indiana company. So it didn't take them too much in the R&D department to get them right for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but certainly tires last around this place are a challenge. And I think a lot of the reason that your sports car series that go there now don't use original Grand Prix configuration on the tail end of the circuit, as we watch our leaders go through there, is because they don't have to use that banking and diamond cut surface together. That's why they don't blow as many tires or have such tire concerns. They run like the SRO 8 hours in Indianapolis, for example. They don't have to make a special tire for that because they're not running tires on such an angle at such forces on banking as they would otherwise. So very interesting stuff there.
I think it's worth noting that it wasn't even just Formula One and sports car racing exclusive to Indianapolis that had this problem with the diamond grinding as well. In fact, the NASCAR Cup Series had its own problems with diamond grinding, and that was most prominent at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Same tactic as what was used to repave the Indianapolis Motor Speedway surface was used at Charlotte, and they had the exact same problem. There was just a litany of tire failures, except there you don't have a competing manufacturer. You have one set. It was Goodyear. You had to go with Goodyear the entire time, and that race ended up setting the record for the most cautions in NASCAR Cup Series history, a record that I believe still stands today of 22 yellows in one race, 103 out of 400 laps of the Coca-Cola 600 that year run under the yellow flag. So that has set a record over there. And like you said, same situation that we had over here at NASCAR Turn 1 for that Formula One race. Though, admittedly, not quite to a catastrophic result. It was more just the one race that got played by it. It was the one track that had the diamond grinding, and it's been repaved since then, and they do not use diamond grinding there anymore, understandably so. There's a lot more series that use that infield circuit there that would require special tires, which obviously it's just not sustainable. So they have not used diamond grinding there since then. It's right on board with Jordan Graves, trying to catch up to David Graybill in the fight for second place. I do love these little tangents we can go off on. We have to have more of them before this race is over. Jordan Groves to the inside. He'll take away the second position. I think that damage we saw from where Graybill hit that outside wall and won starting to impact him, as he's now not lost the lead, but he's lost second place as well. Struggling big time to get that car turned in. So I think something wrong with mechanical grip causing Graybill to suffer here late.
Absolutely. And you look at his lap chart here, his performance has dropped off noticeably since the hit. He's really struggling to find some grip. He's managed to keep himself in the low 41s. The last 3 or 4 laps, he's now gone past the mid 41s. It's really not playing into his favor because Pavel Beer and Jordan Groves are running 41 flat and 40.9 respectively. So he's really losing out quite a bit here with that damage. So his car definitely isn't right as well as it used to be, but we're also running lap 19 on these tires for Graybill, and we have seen, even with a perfectly straight car, Graybill has struggled quite a bit on long run pace and being able to keep that car underneath him as the laps tick down. Jordan Groves, his tires are 4 laps newer. Pablo Beers are 2 laps newer. So of difference in tires there. It doesn't sound like much, but 5 additional miles, 20 additional miles of wear on these things can make a really big difference.
And I think that's the difference that we're really starting to see here, and we're not going to be able to I don't think this is sustainable for Graybill. I think he's kind of in damage control mode. I don't think he's at risk of losing any more positions. It's about another 13 seconds back to Jason Wallen, and he has been growing away, or he has been extending that gap back to Wallen ever since. Wallen's nowhere close to the draft, but he's going to have to get that damage fixed in pit road if he wants to go after this race and get himself a second position up there later on in this one. So we'll keep fingers crossed and hope that we can keep this thing sorted. Noticing the replay tickers up on the bottom right. I didn't think we were on a replay. We're here anyway. Yes, there we go. We get the lapse in concentration bites us again. We're 136 laps in, well past halfway for the SimRacers for Mental Health 500-mile-long event here on Maconi Entertainment. If you're just joining us, welcome. You just missed one heck of a discussion we had going into the history about diamond grinding, tires, our own motorsports history, what have you. My name is Nolan Rempel. I've, of course, been joined here so far throughout this race tonight by my co-host and colleague, Trevor McClure, and Eddie Smith has been doing a good job working the cameras back for us for the duration of your race tonight. It was a messy opening start to this race. You had 3 cautions before lap 20. It was around then we finally got our first green flag lap, and we had yellow flags on and off, and now we're down to 5 cars on the lead lap total. You did have Scott Ricard, who was out on the racetrack looking to make up some time, but he has since pulled down to the pit road a long time ago, and he has now ended his night. You had William Kruska, who was also trying to work his way through the grid, so he did not start this race until about 90 laps deep. But he got disqualified only 19 laps into his bid after he had a pit road infraction. So that's what sees us running things as they are. So these 5 cars continuing to maintain their speed. We've only had 1 run of green flag pit stop so far all race long. And we're hoping that we'll run this race green to the end, as I have a feeling these drivers are kind of hoping for that as well. At this point, though, it's looking like gap-wise, this is how things are going to stand for the foreseeable future here in this one. And I think with that, we can probably take a quick step back, and we'll be back with some more racing from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in just a few minutes. You're watching this 500-mile race for the SimRacers for Mental Health group here on Maconi Entertainment.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Maconi Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Maconi Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MaconiSetupShop.com and learn why Maconi Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
And we're back from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, rounding lap 141, 60 laps left to go in this 200-mile race on what will be one of our couple of Dallara IR-18 send-offs here in this one on Maconi Entertainment, along with several others that will be taking place all across the sim racing service over the course of the next 24 to 36 hours, give or take. You'll also have coming on up tomorrow, as a matter of fact, what has been doubly named the 880,000 yards of bricks. If that's ever a play on the Brickyard, I don't know what is. That'll be taking place here on Maconi Entertainment as well for another, 500-mile race. And here we go, David Graybill. Oh, hello, into pit road on a 4-tire drift. Thought for a second he was going to lose control of that car. Just as we saw a couple of drivers doing here over the past couple years as they enter pit road.
He really Scott Dixoned it in there, and that's going to surprise me if that doesn't yield a penalty for him. Don't generally make that much tire smoke locking up without also slowing down the car adequately enough. Typically, you lose about 30% efficiency in braking when you lock the wheels, so it makes it very difficult to push the limits and also get the car slowed down with your tires dragging on the ground like that. Decent stop there, top of 9.1 seconds, as we have Macadori as well as Jason Wallet going through turn 1 now. Beard now put David Graybill a lap down. See him drive through turn 2 there. Himself still having to come to pit lane as well, so Graybill will get that lap back organically. It's really interesting to see Graybill pull back so much after starting on pole position and running so strong at the beginning and early stages of this race.
So no penalty, by the way, on that entry for Graybill, speaking of which, and this is actually something else we can get interested in. You mentioned, obviously, Scott Dixon earlier on in this broadcast, about he was, I think, what did you say, it was 0.8 of a mile over when he hit the control line, and that's what netted them a speeding penalty. iRacing service works a bit differently. It takes the average speed between two different timing lines. Now, Graybill was technically speeding when he hit pit road. By 10 miles an hour, in fact. He was going 70 when he hit pit road. However, he slowed it down to 50 miles an hour instead of the speed limit, which is 60. So he was able to get that speed to average out to underneath what the speed limit was before he engaged that pit limiter, which is what has allowed him to escape that without any penalty. And by doing so, it's a really risky play. Don't get me wrong. But you can gain a solid couple tenths of a second, which when you're in cars like these that fly around at speeds this quick, those couple tenths of a second can really, really matter. We've already seen if you're outside about 3 tenths of a second, you're falling back from the dirty air. You're not catching back up on the straights.
That's true. And there is another International Motorsports Association series that calculates pit speed the same way. They do it by control lines in the pit lane, so they take the averages there. But it's very difficult to have a big variance in one of the quote-unquote sectors on pit road and gain a time advantage, because all they're looking for is if you are under a certain time, a known quantity of time, is going to be speed versus the distance to the previous timing loop or control line. So it's very hard to get an advantage over a car that does the right thing straight out. Now, again, doing the right thing in getting exactly to pit speed, in this case, I believe it's 60 miles an hour at IMS, from 200 plus is very difficult. And oftentimes you do sink down below that 60 mile an hour mark and go back up to it. But it's very difficult to gain any sort of position by exceeding pit speed, even in the most minute point, as Graybill did there. So I think he dodged a bullet there. That was a really big lockup, and thankfully he didn't have to reuse those tires because they were going to be quite square by the time his boys took them off.
Jason Wallet is currently in pit road for his next round of service. He did not have near as wild of an entry as Graybill did. We're waiting on Joe McAdory and Jordan Groves to still come down to pit road. We're expecting both of them to be within the next 3-4 laps or so here in this one. I'd be very surprised if we saw them staying out for much longer. And the way that trend sits, I think we got one more stop left in us before we'll be able to put things to bed on the pit road side of things, and we'll be able to have a straight shot through to the end. Groves is going to be in pit service this time by as well, and that will then just leave. Actually, that's it. Jordan Groves was the last driver who needed to wait down to come on down to pit road. Now, at this point in time, the field is spread out so much that even if a car spins out on the racetrack, the possibility of a caution is honestly pretty slim. Because there's 2 criteria for a caution to be brought on iRacing. 1, you have to be on the racetrack, right? But 2, you have to be at an active risk to oncoming traffic. If there's nobody behind you, it's not going to throw a yellow flag for you. But with there being so few cars, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a situation where you'd actually be at risk if you crash out.
And that's very true. It all depends on how the system interprets it, right? So I think a large enough crash, it might have no choice but to do it, as we have David Graybill rolling right past Jordan Groves, fresh out of pit lane. I think the way the race has been going, though, Jordan, once he gets back up to speed, will make quick work of Graybill, who was our pole sitter. It has a remarkable fall from grace here as he finds himself really trying to fight for second to keep himself out of a low of 3rd place. You're right. It is interesting because there are so few cars on such a large track that has literally a golf course on the inside of it that somebody could wreck and not really be a risk to anybody. Even in the real world, you could feasibly spin to the inside of the track and not leave a single piece of debris on track, and there really wouldn't be much reason to stop the race short of going to retrieve that driver. They have a really nice dicey battle here.
I was going to say, we almost had another caution right there as Groves tried to lunge up the inside of Graybill down to turn 3, and Graybill cut across the nose and took that line away. Now Groves is going to challenge back the front straightaway into turn 1, and this time it's no contest. Oh, Graybill trying to fight back. Got to watch out for the gearbox, though, and Groves will hang on to the spot. Now, I might actually have been a little off. I think we are still waiting on McAdory to come down to pit road in 4th. It appears as though we are, so still got that driver to come down to the lane yet. They have not been down to pit road as of yet. They pit on lap 119. It'll be about 31 laps deep on their stint this time by. Meanwhile, Graybill, again, trying to close the back of Jordan Groves, but with that weaving that Groves can do down these straightaways, he's doing a great job on keeping Graybill at bay. So it's one thing that really struck me about this track is seeing cars weave side to side of this down the straightaway. You didn't see this a whole lot back in the NASCAR Cup Series, and even back then the Xfinity Series ran here on the oval side of things, did you? Because the cars are just so bulky, you just lose more time than you gain. But with these cars, though, it's such a beneficial that it's practically second nature for these drivers to snake around on the straightaways like this.
Absolutely, and there's so much higher top speed, and the frontal areas are much different between a NASCAR Cup car and Xfinity cars. We had Graybill, looks like he tagged the wall there at 4. You can get a replay of that. That was a really loose car coming through 4.
Looked like possibly just understeered up on the wall off of turn 4. Yeah, and just scraped it pretty good. It's not going to help things on the right side of the number 29 Dallara IR-18, who will continue to push back after it. It still sits in 3rd, but I think that's kind of put the nail in the coffin on him gaining any further spots throughout the duration of this race.
That's the second time his right side's had a big pancake hit like that. It's certainly not doing his suspension arms any favors. Hopefully for him, the wheels took the brunt of that damage, and he can effectively repair that with the next tire change. But I think you're right. He's certainly not going to be pushing forward any harder. That said, he does have a sizable gap back to Jason Wallet, so we'll have to see how David Graybill's pace suffers, see if he'll be at any threat. But if he drops half second a lap off of his pace, it could really open the door for Jason Wallet to catch up. Certainly by the end of the race. We've got 47 laps to go. There's time to do it. And we'll keep a close eye on Graybill's time card, but at the moment it's not promising. Wallet's about a quarter second quicker last time by. We'll see how this plays out, but really tough going for Graybill. Like I said, he started off on top of the world, and now he's struggling to keep himself on the podium.
Hearing to get as specific as car parts as suspension arms reminds me of why exactly I stuck to the driving side of things and always let somebody else worry about more the engineering side of aspect of things. I never really understood. This is going to sound very counterintuitive coming from a motorsports commentator, I know, but I never really was. I still don't understand a whole lot about the technical aspect of a lot of these things, about car steps and all this sort of thing. Everything I touch, I just make worse. So I don't touch any of that with a 10-foot pole. But, you know, it's part of the differences in the racing, right? I mean, that's why I tend to take roles more from the sidelines, just watching the cars go around as opposed to actually being an engineer, a spotter, a pit crew chief, anything of that nature in regards to the industry. And there's a place for everybody. You don't necessarily need to have a huge knowledge of how the inner workings of everything looks. You just need to know in some points what part fails. Like when you see, for example, at a local quarter-mile drag strip, totally not something that happened earlier this year. When you see, the hood get blown off of a Mustang Fox body, you just got to know, oh, the turbo gave out, clearly, as opposed to knowing exactly what built up in the pressure to make it blow up the way it did.
That's right. And like Mario Andretti said, a race car is an animal with 1,000 adjustments, and each different discipline of racing is a different animal with different thousands of adjustments. I've dealt with everything from spec Miatas the way up to prototypes in my career, and all so much different, and there's so much to learn about them, even if you're not an engineer. I'm not a technician either. I was like a mediocre number 3 mechanic at best. It's not my strength. But you still have to understand how all of that works, especially from my side of it now. But as a spotter too, it really helps to understand the car that you're calling, because really you're the first one that knows when something's bad, even potentially ahead of the driver. There's been scenarios where that's been the case. So having that, and even just being like an interior technician or a driver changer for prototypes, which I did a fair number of years as well, knowing everything does on the inside is supremely beneficial as well, especially if you have to do work in there during a race to not lose any time. So I mean, you see so much of these things, and you begin to gain an understanding of it. And even going to like LMP3, which is what I call race strategy for now, it's absolutely necessary that somebody in my position knows what the controls do and what they look like. You have a driver in there and you tell them to turn like the FIA rain light on, and they've never done it in a season of racing. They have no idea where the rain light is. My job to know exactly where that button is and to tell them in the most concise way when they're going 180 miles an hour on the Daytona International Speedway, that button is and how to get it, and everything in between. But at the same time, you're right. A tire technician doesn't have to understand the inner workings of the chassis or the engine or how any of the interior controls work. They just have to understand tires. Or the fuel technician, the same way. The fuel chief, they need to understand these things. They need to understand how to adequately measure and weigh fuel, and how to refuel the car in the most efficient and quickest way possible. So there are so many different facets to all sorts of motorsport, whether it's these Dallara cars going around ovals, or sports cars going around Sebring, or quarter midgets going around a quarter-mile track, some local dirt track somewhere, or Fox bodies blowing turbos on a drag strip. There's just so many different sports, and within each one of those, there are so many different roles that people play to make it all work out. And that's I think all of those people deserve an equal shout out to the drive as the drivers get, because the drivers are often credited with so much of the effort when really they're responsible for the last 5% of the effort, and all of the people supporting it are the ones that really make it happen. And I think they deserve more credit all across the board, whether it's drag racing, circle track racing, dirt tracks, motorcycles, sports cars, open wheel cars. There's so many people who make these things happen, and they don't often get enough credit for it.
Oh, absolutely. They're the people that help to put a race team together. I mean, because at the end of the day, you have those people that will go out and they will race by themselves. But those people don't usually go anywhere other than club racing to your local road course. It's the big teams that do have to put stuff like this together. And I've had the opportunity to see just how many people there can be working on this at a time. Like I do commentary work as well at an NHRA sanctioned drag strip that I live about 20 minutes away from, and I've got the chance to see teams like the likes of Justin Bond and Khalid Al-Balushi from Bahrain 1 Racing over there for the Pro Mods series. I've seen how many people will work on those cars just tirelessly all across the span of the day. But you only ever hear about the driver, and most of the time the crews just go completely unrecognized, even though those are the guys that are ones that are pretty much rebuilding an entire engine in under an hour to get it turned around and get it back down the racetrack for another 4-second pass. It's a big shame how a lot of smaller personnel in the motor industry do not receive enough credit that they probably should, and I am glad to see that they are starting to get more and more recognition the longer time passes by, because it allows for them to be able to be properly recognized for the work that they do. And I think that's going to continue to grow as the motor industry grows. I mean, motorsports has been around for a long time, but it still is one of those things where it's almost a bit mysterious in a way. It's very difficult to understand sometimes how it works and all the inner workings there are. It's not as simple as just showing up and sending a car around the racetrack, especially for big tier series like the prototype racing, like the World Endurance Championship, IMSA, IndyCar, what have you. There's so many finer workings to it across the board that you just cannot go out and do it alone. And I think that I'm with you in the camp all the way about that one, Tyler, about how everybody in that area absolutely deserves more recognition. And I'm so glad that it has been happening a lot more as of late, especially as more and more series have begun to open up following the, unfortunately, global events, shall we say, over the past 2 or 3 years or so. It's good to see. And I have a feeling there's a lot of bright things in way of people being able to kind of break into motorsports a bit more in the near future based on finding out more about what it can take to become involved in motorsports at some of those more lower entry-level jobs like that one.
I mean, the easiest way is to grow up near a racetrack. That really seems to be like the common thread for a lot of people. That and have childhood aspirations to become a race car driver, not the money to act on it. And that's pretty well the formula. And then from the rest of that, it's hard work and sacrifice. And if you're willing to do that, you can get a job in motorsport. But it's usually the hard work and sacrifice where people check out.
Coming to 30 laps to go in just a little while. We're at 34 laps as of right now. Pavel Bier continues to lead the way, 11.3 seconds over David Graybill. Justin Wallet sits in 4th. Joe McAdory officially 1 lap down. He's the first driver now a lap down on the racetrack through overall timing. So as we continue to work things through, why don't we ride on board here with one of the drivers here. Let's go on board with Jason Wallet here. We'll see what it looks like from a driver's eye view, to see what it looks like to run around Indianapolis Motor Speedway for a few laps.
David Graybill taking what could potentially be his last stop of the race. With 28 to go, stint length has been around 30 to 32 laps. They should be good to go to the end here. Could this be a strategy call to be the first car to go to the end? We'll wait and see, but with a pit stop time of 9.7 seconds, we have to think that he took fuel and tires. He's trying to make it home with this stop. It's going to drop him down to P4. It puts him provisionally one lap down to Pavel Beer, Groves, and Jason Wallet, all who have yet to stop here in the closing stages, but there are 25 to 27 laps into their stint, so it'll be short time now for the top three. Interesting to see how this plays out for David Graybill. Go to the end. See Pavel Beer here on his own island, stays out yet again, continuing to grow his lead over Jordan Groves, which is currently a massive 13.8 seconds. It's more than a third of the racetrack in an advantage that Pavel Beer has over P2. So he is just smooth sailing here, still turning very quick but consistent laps here, really not taking any risk with anything here as he powers his Verizon machine down the back straight into turn 3. Moving around to 25 laps to go. Interesting to see if he stops here or stays out with 28 laps on his tires. He is in, our leader, in for the final pit stop. Nice and tidy to the control line. Nice little lockup there. Hopefully that doesn't bite him later. We don't want a Scott Dixon 2.0 this year. We've already had one. We'll see how this plays out as Graybill rounds turn 4. He's going to get his lap back here, but still quite the deficit as Jason Wallet and Jordan Groves still circulating. And Groves will inherit the lead here as Pavel Beer finally stops in his pit box there at pit exit. Really interesting strategy from Graybill being the first car to stop, make it to the end. Pavel Beer, not the fastest pit stop we've seen all day at 9.5 seconds, but he's making sure he can get it home.
Tell you what, it's been interesting to see Graybill be the first driver in consistently. I think all of this stems back to that first slap with that outside wall. He was struggling a little bit before that, and that can be brought back to some of the damage that was brought along with that little bit of contact that he had with the second place runner under the our latest caution, which was way back almost 100 laps ago at this point in time. But now Graybill is back and forth. He's going to get his lap back. We know that he's likely going to cycle through to about the third position. Jason Wallet also in a pit road, nice and tidy on the pit entry for himself. And this will be the last run of pit stops for everybody. Graybill's longest green flag run was about 30 laps. He pitted at about 31 to go, so it might actually be a bit tight for David Graybill to try to make it to the end, but everybody else we know is going to be good. I suspect Graybill might do a bit of fuel saving. He should be fine as well. I wouldn't expect any kind of fuel dramas in this one. As Wallet's out of pit road, Jordan Groves, race leader, is down to the lane. That will allow Paul Bier to overtake the race lead once again. Bier currently coming around through turn number 4. As we're under 25 laps left to go, time is continuing to gradually tick away from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and this 500-mile race for the Sim Racers for Mental Health group, and what has been their IndyCar send-off, and we'll be having, of course, that other one for the 880,000 yards of bricks over tomorrow, right here, same place at Maconi Entertainment. As Pavel Bier has officially handed the race lead, 13.5 seconds clear of Jordan Groves. Groves has good 10 seconds back to David Graybill, and then it's another 10 seconds back to Jason Wallet. So still no battles on the track, and looks like that's going to be about your finishing order then, bar anything major happening with Joey McAdory a lap down.
Absolutely. It kind of looks settled here, but that's usually when drivers make the most mistakes, is when they mentally relax, take their focus down just a little bit. It happens to the best of them. And anything can happen here. We've seen some pretty crazy finishes to the real-life counterpart to this race. But yeah, really, as long as nobody makes any mistakes here, I think we're pretty well set. And I think we're just reiterating this so the commentator's curse comes into play. We have a little bit of action here towards the end. At least one can dream. We're definitely down to 5 cars still running, which is pretty low. I don't know if that's a record-setting low in the real-life counterpart, but certainly gotta be close. We've had some few hectic 500-mile races with these cars and their predecessors over the years. There's about a 104-year history of it, so certainly everything that can happen has happened in that time.
Kind of exhausted all of our conversation avenues at this point in time as we continue to observe these guys running around the racetrack. Joey McIntyre, the last driver that had yet to pit, he's down to pit lane now in the number 23 car. He's the last pit stop we will officially be having today for service, and he'll go up on the jack to take fuel and tires, and he'll be good to go from here then until the end of this race. It's been a race. I think that's about the best way we could possibly put this. It has been a race. I've had worse races. I've had better races. It's been a race. We've had a long green flag run right in the middle of about 100 laps, actually, about on the docket as of right now. I'm not sure if we want to bring up the fact that that's because at that point we had less than 10 cars on the racetrack, but you take with what you get, and it's been a long green flag run to say the very least. We were saying we would get some green flag runs once we whittle down a few drivers. Well, we were somewhat correct in our assumption with that one.
Well, it is Friday, so I think this is really just Black Friday for Delara's parts department in the virtual world. Certainly what we've gotten here. The record, by the way, for 500-mile races at Indianapolis for the fewest cars finishing was in 1966. It was seven cars remain, so we are well now under record for 500-mile races with fewest finishers. Conversely, the most cars running at finish were 30, and that happened last year in 2021. So
Wow, look at that.
that was a hallmark and a milestone for this particular chassis in the world of Indianapolis motor vehicles. We've kind of put ourselves in the rocking chair, as I call it, when we're in a position where we can't gain anything and we can't lose anything on the racetrack. So you kind of just settle in, stay focused, hitting your marks, and don't make any mistakes. Hopefully that's what these guys can do. If Joe McIntyre wanted to be a deer, he would stop his car in the middle of the back straight and get a caution here and then continue as the flag came out to make it interesting. But alas, here we are, hoping for it. But I do this kind of thing for a job. I have 23 years now of motorsport experiences, as it's starting flagging communications at VIR many years ago when they reopened the track. So in this lull, if you or anyone else out there on the chat has a question about motorsport in general, IMSA racing, anything like that, I would be happy to take these last few laps that we have together to answer your questions and shake up a little conversation.
Well, while we're waiting on that, I did actually, just on a whim, I decided to look into that 1966 500 that you mentioned. And boy, oh boy, I did not think of all things there could be a scoring error in that race, with there only being 7 cars. But apparently there was a controversy over who won the race, and it is believed the second place runner, Jim Clark's team, they are thought to have been the rightful winners, even though he had spun on 2 separate occasions, though he had never been crashed out of the race. Official winner, by the way, Graham Hill. In case you wondered, this was back, of course, when the 500 was actually on the official Formula One calendar. That reads to me worryingly similar to the Talladega 500, only a few years later in '69, where there were only 2 cars up to speed, and I believe it was Richard Brickwood, that took the win there. But again, it was in a controversy because they somehow mixed up which one of the only 2 cars that had any race pace, because the rest were from the feeder series, bar a tire incident that's way too convoluted to get into right now. They somehow mixed up which one of those 2 was leading, and to this day, it's still unclear who won. It's eerie how history seems to repeat itself only 3 years later at a different racetrack in a completely different discipline.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild though to think as we have a yellow flag. What?
Ooh, it's Graybill, Gary Graybill. Turn 3.
He is just golden from grace here. Yeah, he's
up to speed. Not sure what happened here. We'll take a look at this one, and this is coming down to turn 3. He probably hit the curb. That's my honest best guess here. So we'll get a look. Down to 3. Yeah, clips the curb, loses control, saves it though. That's fine. And oh dear. That's a no-no. That is a huge no-no right there. That is, I'm sorry, I don't usually say things like this often, but that is very clearly manipulating the race to force a caution late. And I know it hasn't been the most entertaining races, but that's just not something I can ever condone on a racetrack, ever. And he has been disqualified. He's been booted out of the circuit altogether. I don't blame them at all. That was a good move, if you ask me.
Was really heads-up thinking by Graybill, though, to be fair. As someone whose job is to read the rule book very carefully, I do commend the heads-up thinking there, the sportsman side of things, maybe not so much, but certainly an interesting move and very heads-up at the time as we see a couple of takers here to pit road. Everybody apparently, except, oddly enough, pit stop Joe McAdory is the only one who doesn't come to the lane here. So
he's staying out to get his lap back.
Is staying out to get that lap back. We would have never have thought the guy who just loves pit lane and ice cream would be the one to stay out here. And Beer obviously taking a very, very late plunge into pit lane to cover the other guys, which is one of the dangers of being in the lead, is you are the first one to make your decision whether or not you're going to come. And everybody behind you can say, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'll take new tires. They seem to be advantageous, especially with 12 laps to go, 10 probably when we go back to green. So really heads up, mirror checking by Beer to defend his position there and come in with everybody else and sort of wipe that advantage. But Groves and Wallet would have had real opportunity if Pavel Beer had stayed out there and not been on top of checking what's going on behind him. So again, heads up driving from Graybill to do what he did, sportsmanlike or not, but also heads up by Pavel to understand what his competitors were doing. That's really interesting to see that heads up. So he's really on a swivel and in the zone, paying attention. To see that, especially from somebody leading a race like this.
So we do have a question from the chat that's been thrown your way. This was thrown before the caution, but now that we're under caution, this is a good time as ever to discuss it. And of course, it is for you, Tyler. What makes a great spotter versus a mediocre one?
The easiest way to answer that is when a good spotter keys the radio, their intrusion is worthwhile. Bad spotter, when he keys the radio, becomes liability. And that comes down to a lot of different things, mainly knowing when to talk, when not to talk, and who you're dealing with. I mean, in IMSA, I've dealt with guys that just effectively got their competition license yesterday, and I've also ran with guys like Christian Fittipaldi, Joao Barbosa, Philippe Nasser, Sebastian Bourdais, and you talk to like a bronze-rated driver who's very green around the edges and doesn't have his main yet, very differently than you talk to a Christian Fittipaldi or Sebastian Bourdais or someone of that caliber. So you adjust and just understanding who you're talking to, what you're communicating, and the fact that you're breaking their concentration, even in the most finite and smallest amount for some of these guys to use to run Formula One. Their mental bandwidth is so wide. You're still breaking their concentration. So what you have to say, damn sure better be worth it. And that's hallmark. That's the biggest difference between a good spotter and a bad spotter.
That's actually rule number one of when we were doing our track marshal as well, and I was being trained to do radio work there. And the first thing they told me, figure out, before you key out the radio, figure out what you want to say and in the least number of words it takes to say it.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing too, is economy of words is a big thing when you're on the radio. Because you're trying to communicate something very important in a very short period of time. As the pace car ducks in, we have our top 3 shootout for the lead lap honors. Pavel Beer, really nice jump doing the traditional snake, which of course is much shorter than it usually is. So maybe that's the Lara Earthworm now that we're down to 3 segments. But sort of the same story here is they're about 5 car lengths apart. Groves, nice run, runs wide there, but he is on the bumper. He might challenge for the lead here.
Groves trying to make the move for the race lead. 11 laps to go around the outside line with the number 66 car. Pierre to the inside, forcing Groves to the marbles. Groves in the wall, and look how Wallet gets into him. Wallet's into the wall in 3. They're able to survive in 10 to go, and that's just broken up this train of 3.
Oh man, we didn't think we'd see anything like that in the closing stages here, did we? Beer, obviously, completely perfect car. Groves likely will have some damage with that kiss on the wall, but Wallet's going to take the brunt of that, probably with some front wing damage getting into the back of Groves like that. It's wild as we appear to be on replay, but I think we're live. There's our replay. Really nice, tidy, but Groves, really good run here for the first time, I think, in a while, if ever. He is a better exit through 2. And either Beer or Graybill at his peak. And he's side by side here, just gets high and runs up the racetrack just enough and slows him down. Wallet right into the back, catching a little bit of air off the front end, but and drama continues in this at the beginning, a very messy race with 8 to go. Looks like we seem to be back in that rocking chair again. Everything seems to be shaken out. I think Beer has got that 1 second plus lead, and I think he'll hang on to it. But, going back to our previous question, you're absolutely right. The economy of words on the radio is exceptionally important because you're trying to deliver an important message in a very short period of time. You're trying to do so very clearly, and in my case, it's often been with a driver whose first language isn't English. Also, too, most of our conversation is not what we say, but how we say it. And so, other hallmark of good spotter versus a guy with a radio, which is a nice way of saying bad spotter, is the tone of voice that you use. And I go completely monotone, enthusiastic, completely devoid of any feeling, excitement, anything when I'm on the radio spotting. The point where I've had teams upset with me because they didn't think that the crash that I called was as bad as it looked like when the car got back to the paddock because I didn't get excited about it. I've watched cars literally totaled in front of me, and my tone of voice never changes. It's just completely even keel and monotone, and so much of that comes from the fact that if you're overly excited on the radio, you could overhype or concern your driver. At that point, you could say the right thing, but you can say it the wrong way, and you then start to become that liability that separates the good spotters from guys with radios.
About 5 laps to go this time by. Pierre pulling away by a big margin. Groves in 3rd, and Wallet's even been overtaken by lap car Joe McAdory back there in the 4th and 3rd positions as that damage from that hit to the wall starting to impact that 76 car. And I think you're right, we're going to be sitting in the rocket chair for the time being, but is it just me? Or is that gap between Groves and Bier slowly but surely trying to close on in? In fact, Groves last time by, he was 100th of a second quicker.
Yeah, quicker maybe, but we are expiring our lap count here, and catch up that gap, he's going to have to pick up the pace to just tenths, but multiple tenths per lap. And of course, it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass. Although I said earlier, the best place to be at Indianapolis, second place on the bumper of the leader, the final lap. So see here if Groves can close it up, but I think Bier is just going to hang on. He's been too good, too consistent this entire race. I think if anything happens, he'll be able to respond to it. Even if Groves halves the gap that we have now of 1.1 seconds, I think Bier won't be sweating it. He'll have an answer. Groves is just going to try his heart out to do what he can, but I don't think he's got the equipment to climb the mountain that is Pavel Bier here with 3 laps to go, now 2 to go as they cross the line.
3 to go so far for now in this one. 1 lap ahead of us there. But yeah, 3 laps to go. It's been a long day. I can't blame you.
That's fair.
2.5 laps left to go now. Bier once again taken to the back straightaway. You see him snaking around. Just try to be careful to make sure that that gap cannot close in, because Groves is closing on the back straightaway and the front straightaway. He is not, however, closing in the corners. That is where Bier is strong at the moment. So Bier...
I think Bier's been strong in the corners the entire race. Like that's really been his hallmark. He hasn't had the crutch speed on the straights. I think that's where his superiority has really shown through this entire race, is those corners. I mean, Graybill had the faster car. He showed it by qualifying on pole. As the tires wore down, Pavel was able to handle corners significantly better than all of his competition, and I think that's where his advantage comes in.
Coming around, 1 lap to go this time by, and Pavel Bier going to be taking it to the white flag, and Scott Ricard is going to make his way out. He wants to finish this race on the racetrack as well. So as we take that white flag, it'll be in the hands now of Pavel Bier, with Jordan Groves a second and a half back and falling. It was 0.4 of a second slower last lap. Bier's got nothing to worry about. It's a Maconi Entertainment 1 to go from the Brickyard at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the SimRacers for Mental Health group. And it's been an attrition-filled race, but we've been green from about lap 80. A controversial caution to put us in this situation, but Bier will weather the storm. He'll exit turn number 4, and he will be your race winner after 500 miles and 200 laps at Indianapolis.
Really nice job. He was the class of the field, the race. Outside of qualifying, he was man to beat. Once we started getting into those long green flag runs, once we got sort of cleaned up here at the IMS, really was the car to beat, and really shown through. And that's all driver with these fixed setups. Everybody's running the same thing, and difference was Pavel Bier, and it was a well-earned victory.
What a ride we've had here tonight, and with all drivers across the line, I think we are about ready to take a rundown of your official post-race results after what has been a long race, but a hard-earned win for Pavel Bier, who will take the top step of the boards. 2 seconds back was Jordan Groves, with Jason Wallet back there in third. Joe McAdory, first driver, 1 lap down. It's an early start to the used car lot with David Graybill in 5th, Jack Kokoski in 6th. Devin Adams is in 7th with Tyler Beeman in 8th. Adam Thompson is 9th with Aaron McQuarrie. Rounding up the top 10, Robert Smith is back in 11th, Tyler.
We've got Andrew Kotska, John O'Brien, William Layton, Jerry Isaacs 15th, Patrick Stein, Scott Rickard, who attempted to re-enter the track there on the final lap but thought better of it. Craig Forsyth, Theo Burgrave, Kamal Murad, 20 with William Kruska, Landon Benson, your top T2.
That's going to leave just Aaron Brown, Tyler Coogan, Michael Chin, Noah Janinda, Jeremiah Forbes, Cody Richardson, Greg Dale, Nathaniel Davis, and Rob Gregoire to round out the race tonight, as it's been a very, very hard-fought race for these guys, and I don't think anybody here could hope for a better way to finish out the year. My goodness. What a race we've had indeed. The smoke flies from behind Pavel Bier as he blows the motor on the Dallara IR-18. And it's one send-off done. You got the 880,000 yards of bricks, though, of course, coming on up, though, tomorrow on Maconi Entertainment. And just waiting to see if we're going to get any of your top three finishers to just a little bit of a chit-chat at the end of this one. It's I'd be very curious to see what their thoughts were on the entirety of this last portion of the race.
Absolutely, and you know, I would like it, since we've had such a small field here, to get Joe McAdory in the chat if we can, because that guy did 30 pit stops this race, which means he stopped in pit lane an average of every 16.6 miles. That's less than 7 laps per pit stop on average from Joe McAdory, and he still finished fourth. Pretty remarkable, and you know, obviously very entertaining. And in fairness, he started from 30th, so he was our penultimate competitor on the starting grid, and he found himself all the way up to fourth simply by virtue of survival today. So very interesting from top to bottom of our short little grid of finishers we have here.
26 pit stops, even in 24-hour endurance races. I have not ever seen a number as high as that on the pit stop counter. Because usually those you only pit about once every hour. 24 pit stops. Let alone a 500-mile race. What was the strategy? That's what I want to know. What was the strategy? I must know this. But whatever the case, it doesn't look like we'll be able to ask him, as none of your top three finishers seeming like they're going to be stopped by to give us a bit of a chit-chat. But it's been a race. It's been a long race, and it'll be another long race tomorrow when we come back to Maconi Entertainment for the 880,000 yards of bricks. For now, though, from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and SimRacers for Mental Health Group, that's about all the time we're going to have for one evening. My name's Nolan Rempel, with the likes of my co-commentator with me in the broadcast booth. It has been a thrill to have Trevor McClure alongside with me in this one. So as we wrap tonight, I want to thank our broadcast partners at Maconi Entertainment. Eddie Smith been doing a great job producing, and as always, we want to thank all of the viewers tonight for tuning in for tonight's action. We hope to see you tomorrow night for the final broadcasted event on iRacing, utilizing the IR-18, the Maconi Setup Shop, 880,000 yards of brakes at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, stay tuned to the Maconi Entertainment social pages for upcoming broadcasts. A special shout out, of course, goes to the entire Maconi Entertainment staff for their work in bringing this racing to you. We hope to see you at our next event. We would like to wish you a safe and a happy new year as we enter into 2023. This has been a Maconi Entertainment production, and we wish you all a good night.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Maconi Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Maconi Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MaconiSetupShop.com and learn why Maconi Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.